Minutes after 10 is the time, and as Matt just said towards the end of that news bulletin, thank you indeed. Do you ever reflect? I mean, of course, just mentioning the listening figures, which remain absurdly high. I always think of gravity at these moments, but who knows? Maybe what goes up doesn't need to come down. We'll see. But 1.5 million people listening to this programme now every week. I often find myself thinking back to the days when the audience was half that size or smaller, and some of the things that we talked about a lot, some of the things that we talked about regularly, that we haven't talked about much since. And there's no particular reason for this. It is, I mean, partly because political events have been so absolutely insane for 10 years, you know. You start with Brexit, you've got Trump, you've got changes of Prime Minister almost as regularly as most of us change our socks. You've had all sorts of national, domestic and international events that have demanded our attention. It's a little bit almost... It's almost difficult to believe that during what you might loosely describe as... I do occasionally find myself thinking whether the bits that we call normal are abnormal and the bits that we think are abnormal are actually normal. So a churning news agenda, a constant diet of chaos almost, but serious events, major events, maybe that's normal. And those little moments of comparative peace, I always think of John Major's Cohen's Hotline. Do you know what that is? And John Major was Prime Minister, and so placid were the political waters at the time that he prioritised quite seriously roadworks where nobody seemed to be working. I had a taxi driver in Ramsgate this very weekend who was very exercised by roadworks where nobody seemed to be working. Lovely bloke, name of Ozzy. If you know him, give him my best. And there were a lot of roads closed around Ramsgate at the weekend. Where when I was there, not for the Soul Festival in Margate, which looked brilliant. I was there for the Belle and Sebastian concert at Dreamland, which was one of the best concerts I've ever been to, if you are remotely interested. But there were lots of roads closed, and when you see a road closed and there's nobody apparently working on it, it's very frustrating. But it's not necessarily what you would expect to be at the top of a prime ministerial to-do list. And John Major set up a hotline. So if you were driving down the road and you saw some roadworks, as in cones, that's why it was called the Cones Hotline. I'm not joking, this was an actual prime minister. You would have a phone number you could ring to report it. So you'd ring up and you'd say, there's some roadworks on the A4 and nobody is working. I don't know what John Major expected anybody to do with that information. I can't even remember where the story went or whether it was ever... But anyway, that is always the thing that I think of when I'm thinking of placid political waters. And of course, we haven't been in placid political waters for years. So... very near the top of the list of things that we talked about quite a lot before we had to talk about Brexit. And then since then, it's almost like a domino toppling event, isn't it? It was mental health. We talked about it a heck of a lot on this programme. I was really proud of some of the work that we did together in just making it a conversation that was considerably less stigmatised than it always had been. Because we never talked about it growing up. I remember at my boarding school, a lad just disappeared halfway through the term. I can see his face now, actually, and I mean, we were all very exercised by the fact that he'd taken to tearing up banknotes as a sort of form. I don't know whether it would have been obsessive-compulsive disorder or whether it would have been on the same chart as self-harm. It was something he did to try to take away the noise in his head, but he took to tearing up banknotes, which, of course, we all found... I mean, frustrating on the grounds that we could have spent that money on tuck, but he just disappeared halfway through a term and nobody ever really said anything about it. And that wasn't abnormal. This would be in about 1986, 1987. That was kind of how it worked. And then occasionally you'd hear a story about someone's mother or father, usually mother. I don't know whether that was reflective of broader statistics or just the way that my school worked, in that those would be someone's mother was not very well. And they might have gone away to stay somewhere, and you might be told about this by a housemaster, just so that you would treat the lad with a little bit more gentleness perhaps than usual. I'm not sure that ever worked, but the point being that it was a subject and remains a subject very close to my heart, but it's just been squeezed out. I know we still talk about it, but I used to work with a military charity called Combat Stress, who did amazing work. And the cause I used to love, this is going somewhere, I promise. Extraordinary how many of my listeners are claiming that they actually rang the Cones hotline. I may read out some of those messages in a moment. I found myself thinking of it today because obviously the Prime Minister has made it one of his earliest announcements. And the calls I used to love taking the most were the calls from people who sort of self-identified as not being the type of people who would ever have mental health concerns. Do you see what I mean? You may remember if you listen to and it's not that we haven't had these conversations recently, but the calls that would begin with, you know, something like, I'm a 6'4" former squaddy and then they'd tell a story about not just recognising that they needed some help and support, but the thing that I love most about these stories is the success of that process. So when I read this morning that the new government is going to open walk-in mental health centres in banks and libraries across England, I suppose the good news is we've still got some libraries left after George Osborne did his worst. But the plan is to create a network of nearly 200 community mental health centres. If you're remotely interested in the inner workings of this bizarre job that I've got, and of course you are, because you listen every day, so you must be vaguely interested in how we decide what we're going to talk about. There are immediately two ways to approach this. And one is positive and one is negative. So the first way to approach it is, how bad is the current scenario that Andy Burnham is seeking to alleviate or fix? I mean, how bad is it? You probably don't know that in the arena of children's mental health, and this probably needs a trigger warning, I'm going to talk about suicide. So if that's something that you struggle with listening to, then please be aware. But in the arena of children's mental health, in many authorities, in many areas, you have to have actually made an attempt on your own life before you get an appointment with a mental health professional. I always, when I'm doing sort of fundraising events for mental health charities, or for Globals Make Some Noise, actually, which does a hell of a lot to support the kind of charities in that space, you can hear a pin drop in the room when I say that. You have to have actually made an attempt on your own life before you can see a professional in many, if not most, health authorities in this country. That's for young adults. That's CAMS. That's the young people, young adults and children's mental health services. And the second way you can do it, of course, is to destigmatise and try to make people listening who may one day, and possibly that day is today, it may even have been yesterday, who may one day need to ask for help but don't think that they can, or don't think that they're the sort of person that should, or don't think that the help that they need. You want to listen to stories that help them reach the point where they can do what you've done and ask for help. It's not something I've ever been through. I mean, I've benefited enormously from therapy, as you're probably bored of me telling you, but I was never in crisis, or I'd never had mental health problems in any sort of meaningful or diagnostic way. But of course, the two stories sit alongside each other, don't they? Because if the provision is poor and you're helping people realise that they need help, there's a Scylla and Charybdis there, where it's going to be very hard to steer your ship between the whirlpool and the sea monster, isn't it? Because, crikey, I think I might need some help. Oh, I'm also learning in the news today that the help isn't there. So you struggle to know how to handle. Which one do you pick? Which angle do you go down? I've made a decision. I today want to talk about people who would describe themselves, people who were very surprised to find themselves seeking help. Because that's what this story is about. It's about being able to access help and support in a way that you currently can't. Andy Burnham puts it rather well. Nobody, and it's about 1 in 5 adults, we think, that would fall into this category. So it's a pretty huge issue. And what's extraordinary about mental health is the journey, if you like, not in that dreadful Californian use of the word, but in the sort of diagnostic and treatment journey. If you catch it early, you can actually address what feel like enormous problems quite effectively. The longer you leave it, the harder it gets. It's one of those terrible kind of situations of jeopardy, those jeopardy scenarios. The longer you leave it, the harder it gets. But many people I know, many people I've spoken to, sometimes just being listened to can help, or acknowledging that you've got a problem becomes the beginning of the part of the problem. Depression would probably be the most obvious. But I mean, it's a multicoloured condition, mental health. Nobody should be left to struggle with their mental health alone, says Andy Burnham. But every day, thousands of people are waiting months for help, then finding the only door open to them is a busy A&E. So these will be NHS services in libraries and in community centres. I mean, the two areas that they've identified first, it's pretty wise, isn't it? You'd have them in libraries and old banks across England. It brings the NHS services closer to home. And again, the Prime Minister puts it very well, making it easier to get support before problems get worse and ensuring those in crisis get the right care in the right place. So what is the question that cuts to the very heart of what I'm trying to describe? The question that prompts you to talk unashamedly and almost evangelically about the difference that it makes. And this is me now, all right? This is just my view, and it may not be one that you share, and that's fine. But I can only present the James O'Brien programme. I can't present the Barry Jones programme or the Mary Smith programme. So I think it makes more of an impact on people who may need help to hear from people who don't look like they would ever have mental health problems. I know part of the problem is, of course, there's no such thing as a person who looks like they might have mental health problems, but you know what I mean by that. We use words like resilience and robustness. There are all sorts of words that have two meanings. They're multiple meanings, some of them very positive. I sort of balk a bit at the use of the word resilience, and then I catch myself using it myself because it fits descriptions that no other word quite reaches. But what I want to know is what happened to you. What I really want to know is why you love this idea, why you know that this is a great proposal from the government, that this first port of call, this button you can push, this alarm you can ring, this place you can go to is necessary in this country. So what made you realise, this is the question, all right? What made you realise that you needed help? That this was not just dealing with the ups and downs of life. This wasn't just a purple period or a dark period. Do you see what I mean? Because we all use the word depressed, don't we? And yet we all use the word obsessed or obsessive, but we don't actually mean a mental health diagnosis when we say that. So an awful lot of skeptics, and this isn't one of those days where I stick all the skeptics in idiots' corner or berate them for being so cynical and callous, because I think skepticism is self-protection sometimes. We talk all the time about mental health in this country now, or we're giving names to things that do. And I get that. I know where that comes from. Sometimes it's self-protection, and we assemble suits of armour. We make thick skin to protect ourselves in difficult circumstances, but it becomes a curse when we're not in those circumstances anymore. My personal experience would be boarding school. You become very, very thick-skinned to survive boarding school, but that skin is no use to you once you've left. It can actually be a hindrance. It can be very damaging to your relationships and your life, because you don't need to be that person anymore to survive a freakish environment. You become somebody that you're not actually. It's not your authentic self, but when you're no longer in the freakish environment, that thick skin is a curse. It's a burden. It's a problem. So you know what that is. That the sort of normal parameters of mood, ups and downs and swings and roundabouts, but the point at which you know you need help. I think the closest I came was when we were struggling to have a baby. And that was really lonely. Because even though it's a double act, obviously there's two of us struggling to have a baby. It was my fault. And I do use the word fault. I probably shouldn't, but, it's a word, isn't it? It was my fault. It was my sperm count that was the reason why we were struggling and ultimately couldn't have a baby without fertility treatment. And that was... years before I ever thought I'd end up in therapy, but the pain of that and the pain and the sense of guilt and responsibility for what I was doing for my wife. I remember sort of curling up one night into a sort of ball on the bed and just sort of howling. And after that, I felt okay, and I'm very blessed with a marriage where I can take that talk to my wife. That's probably the closest I ever came to the bleakness that would have made me seek help. And it was a moment, and it passed, and thank all the Lords in all the heavens, the fertility treatment worked twice, and you feel like the luckiest person on the planet, don't you? So I don't quite know what it is that makes you decide that I think that must be the hardest thing to do, don't you? To actually decide, do you know what, I can't do this on my own. And so much of our society conditions us to think that that's a failing, that's a problem, that's your fault. I used that word a minute ago. Society, particularly for men, but not exclusively, but particularly for men, we are conditioned to pretend that we're fine all the time, to insist that we're fine and that there's something wrong with being vulnerable, there's something wrong with having poor mental health, there's something wrong with needing help. And I think, some days it does feel like we're doing something worthwhile together, doesn't it? Between 10 and 1 every day. Not every day, but some days it does. I think the most worthwhile thing we can do in the context of this conversation is detoxify the moment of needing help, to make it more normal, more natural, and hopefully to make it come sooner, because the sooner you seek help, the quicker you get it, and the quicker you get it, the sooner things will improve for almost everybody. Shall I remind you of the phone number? 0345 6060973. What made you realise that you needed help? Because there'll be people listening to this who are just beginning to think whether or not what they're going through is actually normal. Is this normal? Should I be doing this on my own? Can I deal with this on my own? They'll just be beginning to think. And remember, these are the kind of conversations that can they can actually save lives. It's 10:21.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 22 minutes after 10. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I that was a fairly lengthy introduction. If you missed it, sorry, but I'm going to crack straight on with the calls now. I'm not going to give you a rejig or a repetition. Matthew's in Bradmore, just outside Wolverhampton. Matthew, what would you like to say?
As soon as I heard you, good morning, by the way.
There, you see, West Midlands manners there. You see, that's what we like. Go on.
I got so one-tracked as soon as I heard this is what you were doing that I have just sort of put everything else out of my head for a minute.
Good man.
Right, there is... I had some problems in the past. Yeah. I phoned you up once before. I'd served in Afghanistan. 3 people I knew died there. And when I came back, because at the time, because I've served in the regulars and the reserve didn't have quite the, the help
provision
and support.
Yes.
The regular army has. And so the only thing I really could think of at the time when I felt I needed help was either phoning the Samaritans, or there was a Vietnam vet who also had been doing some stuff at the time, and because America had been involved in Afghanistan, he was the other person that I sort of had been chatting with, and that was more or less it, because I didn't know where to go, what to do, or anything else like that. What I'm part of now, and I think maybe it should have a bit wider recognition, because I'm not sure everyone's heard of it, is that there is a group called Men Walking and Talking. If you Google that, you will find it.
Yes.
And there will be an organisation, like a certain organisation. There will be someone near you, And I've been doing that, in that what you do is you meet up. I mean, in my case, well, you'll probably know it's a Willenhall.
Yeah.
Right?
There's one in Kiddie, actually. I see their Facebook posts.
Oh,
there's one in Kiddie as well.
Exactly. They are on Facebook. And they meet up once a week for an hour a week, and you just go along, you just walk, and if you want to talk, you can talk. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk.
How hard was it the first time? Because, there's going to be a lot of men, in particular, thinking to themselves, oh, crikey, oh, I don't like the sound of that. I don't like making small talk. I don't like talking to strangers. I have enough trouble talking to my family and friends. I don't. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit out of the comfort zone, isn't it?
But it works in a way because you're talking to strangers. I don't want my wife to know that I phoned you, because I don't want my wife to know that I've had problems in the past, which seems really strange. Even though she now works for Samaritans. Yeah. But I still feel like I don't want to discuss this sort of stuff with her, but I find it easier to discuss it with a stranger because I don't want them to judge me, or I don't want my wife or my family or my friends to. I hope there's nobody listening to this.
No, nobody at all. Just don't listen to the next news bulletin when they talk about the listening figures. Seriously, that's the last thing you need. This.
But anyway, I am in a happy place now.
I can tell.
But at the time, I was not in a happy place.
Well, can I ask about that? When you say problems, what were the? Because I mean, you've come back from a war zone, so you're going to be in mentally spaces that many of us have never visited and never will visit. But what made you realise that this was not normal?
One of the things was I couldn't keep food down.
Oh, mate.
I would go and get something that you would think would normally be nice, like a McDonald's. I'd be hungry. I'd buy it. Within about half an hour, I was throwing it up again. And my weight just dropped. I was looking at myself in the bath, and I was like, I was turning into like skin and bone. Yeah. Because my weight was just dropping off everywhere.
And you were hiding that from the people closest to you?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I'm even just walking along. Another thing that I have noticed.
So your tummy was in knots constantly.
Yeah. And another thing that I've noticed, my emotions are far closer to the surface than they used to be. Yeah. When I first came back, I started talking to somebody because I'd been away and they knew me, and I started saying and as soon as I started talking, and I had to bring up the fact that some people I knew had died there. Yes. And then suddenly it was like someone had thrown a switch, and I was suddenly in floods of tears. And normally when you think you're getting upset, you'll think, okay, back off, I won't talk anymore about it. Yeah. It was like I was going normal, talk, and then suddenly I was just in bits. And it still happens now. Even before I started phoning, I started thinking, and then I thought, oh God, don't stop breaking down in tears. Like, because if I start talking about it too much, I can suddenly, and it comes on that quick that I don't even have any warning of it. It's just suddenly there.
Well, that sounds quite healthy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably be more worried if I wasn't upset by it, but it's still... Yeah. It's some of it... I mean, one of the things about PTSD and so on is that time tends to fix most of it as time goes on. But it's that initial bit. But even so, I don't think it ever completely goes.
No, I guess not. But it is all about dealing with things. First of all, recognising things for what they are. It's why a lot of veterans hit the bottle, isn't it, or get addicted to drugs, because you're just trying to make the noise go away, and it will go away for a bit. But of course, when you wake up the next morning, if you are a substance abusing, then everything will be 100 times worse than it was the night before.
And alcohol is a depressant. It just makes you more depressed, right? And so you then in just this cycle of like drinking and depression and so on, and it just gets worse.
So it's all good. So we welcome what Andy Burnham has announced. Yeah. And of course, what the walking and talking groups are doing, men walking and talking, it really is that simple. Just Google that. Shout out to the lads in the Kidderminster branch who I often see popping up on my Facebook. And Andy's Men's Club, I think it's called, isn't it? Which does very similar work. Andy's Man Club does very similar work in exactly the same space. And they all simply recognise that the beginning of the improvement is the acknowledgement of the... Do we say problem? I think we say problem. Illness is the acknowledgement of the problem. And that is, for you, I mean, it was a slowish process, but the biggest giveaway of all was the fact that you couldn't keep your food down anymore. Oh, man, alive, that's pretty big, isn't it, for other people? And I don't want anyone listening to this to think you have to be an Afghan veteran. But that's the point, isn't it? Is that if you, a tough guy, someone that ticks all the boxes of toughness in our society, if you can be brought low by your mental health, then anybody can.
Yeah, I mean, you even started off by saying a 6'4" soldier, and I was thinking, I'm 5'6". I'm nearly there, but missed by a little bit.
Yeah, we won't hold that against you. Matthew, stay safe, mate, and take care. And thank you, because, people need to hear this stuff. And the idea that there is going to be more help available in the coming months and years than there is now should add a slightly upbeat sheen to some of the conversations that we're going to have. 10:30 is the time. Matt Hewitt is here with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
And 32 is the time. And, of course, what's it called? The Bob? The Burnham Optimism Barometer is now 2 weeks old, and it's been 8 out of 10 both weeks. This would, if it were in need of a little bit of a boost, this announcement would boost mine. I think such an early announcement on this issue is a real indication of how seriously he takes it, and the fact that he gets it. Of course, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, but walk-in mental health centres to open in banks and libraries across England is very good news for people in England who may need to avail themselves of this support, because the idea, and I don't think I want to talk about, there's going to be another 59 dedicated mental health A&Es as well, on top of the 23 which are already operational. But the idea of waiting until you think I'm going to go to A&E, I know it's heartbreaking, right? And those are potentially the good outcomes, because for many people the alternative to going to A&E is the unthinkable one. But that simple acknowledgement that there is a widespread. I think that suicide is the biggest cause of death among men under 54, and the numbers in the great scheme of things may not be huge, but if it's the biggest, the percentages, then it's something that any civilised society would and should be addressing, and here we are. But of course, it's not just men. 10:34 is the time. Charlie is in Newton Abbot. Charlie, what made you pick up the phone?
I picked up the phone because I am a survivor of suicide. Okay. I tried to take my own life last year. I'm very much in favour of this. There's not enough services out there for any mental health issues that anybody might have at all, and those that are either charity-based. Yes. You mentioned one that I'm involved with heavily, which is Andy's Man Club. Right. Is a fantastic organisation, and the Walk and Talk, I've got a wristband on as well. They're another fantastic organisation, but the problem that men have is one, it's a badge of honour. Men don't like to talk about
soldiering
anything.
Through to
They are not. They're not very, very talkative at all, and it's a badge of honour for them. But things like and the other thing is as well, there's not enough. I don't think there's enough free organisations like Andy's Man Club or Walk and Talk around that people feel that they can go to, because it's a cost of living and everything else like that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, as with everything, the private route in pursuit of therapy in particular or treatment is a heck of a lot easier to navigate than the NHS route. That's just a fact of our lives together, which is why the groups like the ones you mentioned assume such incredible importance in people's lives. Because, and I think this is an important word to get into the mix, Charlie, I don't know whether you'll agree, because an awful lot of this is either linked to, caused by, or indeed causes loneliness.
Yeah. It is loneliness. Yeah, it's a feeling of isolation. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Myself, I felt so isolated, even though I was, I'm not anymore, but I was in a relationship at the time. I felt so isolated. I felt very much alone, like there was no one to talk to, or no one to talk to about issues that I had. Excuse me.
I understand. The tricky thing is, in this conversation that we're having, is that, the question on the board is what made you realise that you needed help? And obviously, a suicide attempt is a consequence of knowing that you need help, but not thinking you can find it, and not thinking that there's any point looking for it.
It was friends that made me realise I need help. I was I was given a very implicit instruction by my instructor, because I'm a martial artist as well.
Right. So you're a tough guy. I don't want to labour. I don't want to labour that point, but you clearly are.
But I wouldn't say I'm tough. I'm vulnerable.
I mean outwardly.
Yeah. Outwardly, it's at that point. You don't let your shield down.
Yeah.
But it was my instructor that said, you are going to go to Andy's Man Club, you are going to do this. And then when I was at Andy's Man Club, I then found out other organisations, one that you've been involved with, which is Combat Stress, but also there's also PTSD Resolutions, which are another organisation which are free to ex-servicers and their families as well.
Families are an important point there, actually.
Yeah, and as I say, it was friends that made me.
Can I ask what he saw? Do you know what did he see that gave him such concern?
I don't think he saw anything. I think I'd probably hidden it quite well, but because I'd made that attempt on my life, he was just like, no. I'm going to push you towards. Yeah. And he was going to push me towards that. But he was the only person. What I found was really, really bizarre was he was one of the only people that would talk to me.
What do you mean?
And
because everybody else found the knowledge of what you'd done. It was like cross the road to across. I mean, they cared about you, but they didn't know what to say, so they'd cross the road if they saw you coming, kind of thing. Metaphorically speak. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I get that.
And to the point now that even my own adult children don't even talk to me. You know, they just literally don't talk to me because they don't understand, or they've not. And one of the things that
they're scared, Charlie.
Yeah, they're very scared. But one of the things that I've always said to everybody is, please don't show me sympathy. Don't want sympathy. I want empathy. I want understanding. That is it.
What's the difference between empathy and sympathy?
Sympathy is people giving you hugs and cuddling you and, oh, I'm so sorry that you've done this and all that lot. And empathy is understanding and talking to you about why you've actually done it. Yeah. You know. And
it's harder. Empathy's harder than sympathy. Yeah, under that analysis, isn't it?
It is.
I'd never thought of that, mate. I'd never thought of that before.
Yeah. I mean, also statistically as well, you were saying about the men under the age of 54. Statistically, it's now men under the age of 60, and it's 2 every hour that take their lives.
When did you feel the green shoots of recovery? Tell me about that, if it was a moment or a process, but when you began to think, do you know what, I think I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, I think it's my children that made me realise that I can't do anything further, but also there was this guy in hospital, and the way he put it to me was, he said, if you had been successful in your bid, he said, it would be the people around you, your family, everyone that knows you, that have to deal with the consequences of your actions. He said, but it's now that you've been unsuccessful, the only person that has to deal with it is you. Gosh. Yeah? You've saved them from not just a year, 2 years, 3 years, you've saved them of a lifetime of explaining what had happened to their dad or to their friend. So you've saved them that sort of like that stigma as such.
Wow.
And it will affect them as well. So their mental health will be affected as a result of what you did. So yeah, I mean,
and that's a starting point. That's a starting point for reassembly almost.
Yeah. And then it's just been like whenever you have dark thoughts, then you sort of like remember that you've got kids, you've got people out there. I've had so much love as well from I'm with an organisation called the TAGB, Taekwondo Association of Great Britain, and they literally, they are my family. And the one thing I've realised in life is you don't get to choose your family, but you do get to make it. And I've realised that now, that all these people out there, they love me, and I wouldn't be. Sorry.
I think you've said it all.
Yeah. So Yeah.
And these are good tears. I want everybody to understand that. These are like the ones Matthew was referring to. These are the tears of self-knowledge and clarity and gratitude, I think, Charlie. Gratitude.
Yeah. One thing I would say before the end is that please go to Andy's Man Club. It's one of the mottos is it's really good to talk, and it is. And one of the things that you'll find if you go to these clubs is that you'll find that familiarity, the similarity between what you actually say and what you actually are and who you are as a person. There's so many people like that in the room. There's so many people like that in the room.
And no one needs to hear it more or see it more, do they? Just because that immediate reflection of your own reality in somebody else's eyes or somebody else's life, and that is the first chipping away at the big L, the loneliness. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, mate. It's 10:42. You're listening to James O'Brien. He mentions Andy's Man Club. A lot of people getting in touch to talk about that. Similarly, Men Walking and Talking, another big online presence, and the Proper Blokes Club as well in exactly the same space. And then, of course, traditionally, the biggest supporter of people in moments of crisis are the Samaritans, although they have got, I think they've got funding troubles at the moment as well. But 116123 is the number that you need if any of these issues affect you personally or are affecting you personally. But just focus on that, you see, what he said, that first step, if you like, of recovery or reassembly or whatever word, rehabilitation, I suppose, is actually to recognise how common your condition is, whether you want to call it depression or loneliness, or whether it's PTSD, or whether it's just a generalised poor mental health, the things that are getting on top of me. And we're discussing male issues, but these are not an exclusively male areas. Some of the pressures feel peculiarly male, perhaps, particularly in this weird period of history where we were raised to be providers and to be a certain type of man, and society has changed almost between our feet, and some of the things that we were raised to be have become undesirable in the eyes of society, and sometimes I think in the eyes of people's own families. But that's the first thing to do, is to recognise that you're not alone, both literally and emotionally. Wow, I told you the call. Well, I presumed the calls today would be powerful. We're very blessed to have the people listening that are listening. It is coming up to 11:15. We're staying with this for the foreseeable. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, and what we're trying to do is simply address the moment of realisation, recognition that actually this is not normal. And because this is not normal, I need to do something out of the ordinary. And that is the thing that is hardest for many of us. I'm going to actually ask for some help. It's 10:45.
James O'Brien on LBC.
10:48 is the time. I'm going to read this out, although the sender of it said you don't need to, because it picks up on some of the points that Charlie made. And also it picks up on the thing I opened the show with. I hope it's not too self-referential. And I'm saying we used to do this a lot before politics went bonkers and the news seemed to break. Big news stories seem to break every single day. But it's a subject very, very close to my heart. And what's weird, looking back on all the years I've been doing this, is that it was very close to my heart even long before I sort of found myself benefiting enormously from therapy. There must have been some subconscious knowledge that there were knots inside me that needed to be untied. So I'll read you this from Viv. You helped me 18 years ago. I will never forget calling you about single parenthood and how I got to be a single parent. My husband, and again a trigger warning, there's a lot of talk of suicide on the programme this morning. My husband took his life after a DIY injury meant he lost his sight. He didn't talk to anyone. My son was 11 at the time, and I started talking at NHS meetings about suicide and the need for men to open up. It was my way of coping also. I love this update. My son has grown into a great young man. He's a dentist now, and he got married 8 weeks ago. Life is good. It's what one makes of it. If you can be strong, if you find strength and have good friends. I wish my husband had seen his son marry. If only he had talked more. LBC has got me through some of the darkest times. I still cry. It's those left behind that suicide affects the most. So let's all carry on talking and helping. And then a couple more comments that I won't read out, but which I will very much hold in my heart. It is 10:50, and Brian is in Canterbury. Brian, what made you pick up the phone?
Firstly, good morning, James. How you doing?
That's all right. I don't know where all this outbreak of politeness has come from this morning. I'm all good, mate. What's on your mind?
It feels odd just diving into a conversation without saying good morning, I suppose.
Especially conversations like these.
Exactly, yeah, yes. Exactly. My story sort of mirrors yours in a lot of ways, in as much as it was talking to my family and my wife in particular that sort of gave me the push that I needed to start sort of working out what was, not necessarily what was wrong with me, but what needed addressing. Do you know what I mean?
Of course I do.
It was like, I don't know, there was a few things that were always there. Like, for my whole life, there are things that have been there, but I just sort of never addressed.
And how was that affecting you? What was she seeing that she knew wasn't you?
So I had just a really, really short fuse.
Yeah.
I'd get really annoyed over, and still do sometimes, over some things that just don't need it. But not sleeping properly, not eating well, mistreating myself in terms of like cigarettes and alcohol, food and things like that. So it was just a general unhealthiness about me, which I would chalk up to stress at work or the stress of having young children or something like that, but was actually just me masking something else that was going unaddressed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. What was it? Do you know? Because I mean, there's not often I'm presuming that you took her advice and went to therapy, and you began to unpick the reason. You began to unpick the reasons why you weren't very good at loving yourself or caring for yourself.
Well, part of it is just I've had like an underlying just anxiety about almost everything since I was a kid.
Right.
It's just sort of the way I was put together.
Probably not. It's probably a response to your childhood experiences, but it feels like it's the way you're put together, doesn't it? Because you don't know any different. Yeah. You don't know any different.
Exactly, and it's something that in therapy that I'm still sort of digging through. It's that sort of cliche explanation that everything comes back to childhood, but it really is true.
Yes, it is.
It's But yeah, so I had this sort of underlying anxiety, which I would deal with it. The thing that would make me better would be smoking cigarettes, having a few drinks to take the edge off, something like that, and that would feed into other negative behaviours that kind of snowballed a little bit from there. So it got to the point where everyone sort of sat me down and said, like, look, these are things you need to address, or like life can't continue the way that it is. Do you know what I mean? You wanted
to be a better husband and a better father, and that means being a better man. And you know that inside there is a better man somewhere. You just need a little bit of help finding him.
Exactly. And at the time, I was working in construction at the time, which is not
the figures there are off the charts, by the way, for some of the stuff we've been talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a number of, I think I'm at 3 people this year that I know that have taken their own life, which is it's a challenging thing to address, especially in that industry where you're supposed to be a sort of. It's full of people that want to be a man's man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, of course I do.
You swallow it down and you bite your lip and you just carry on and you get it done.
Yeah, I suppose we conflate physical strength with mental strength, don't we? And I don't even like the word strength in this conversation, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I can't think. I don't like the word strength either, but I can't find another word that quite fits it in a way that does it justice. You know?
No, I can't either. I don't think there is one. Tell me about that moment of impact, because mine was really weird. You've probably heard me wang on about this before. With me, you're unpicking the things that have made you anxious or have made you. And it turned out that getting beaten as a kid at school was a really big part of why I'd lived my life with my fists up, metaphorically speaking. I didn't get into physical fights, but I was always bloody arguing all the time. And I'd spent my life pretending that. So that day, I think I stopped biting my nails that day, Brian. I think it was about a week later I was scratching myself. I'll spare you the intimate details. And I thought, ow, that hurts. And I suddenly realised that for the first time since I was about 8, 9, 10 years old, I hadn't bitten my nails down to the quick. So I suddenly had these nails that meant I hurt myself when I scratched. Do you remember when you started to think, crikey, there's a point to this?
Yeah, I mean, that first day of sitting in therapy and actually being honest with someone else, I think that part of it was someone
was talking to someone that I don't know, that
Yes.
is non-judgmental, that is not directly connected to me or my family or friends or anything like that. It's a completely independent entity.
Yeah.
And that was huge, knowing that I'm not being judged and that I can be honest and not have like a critical response, especially, but not a non-judgmental response.
Yes.
And then, not long after that first session, I quit smoking, which was huge for me. Like, I was smoking 20 or 30 a day. And just that initial sort of lifting of the weight that's on you by getting things off your chest. It just, the short-term positive impact that it had that was almost immediate was really shocking to me.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
It's one of the main things that's kept me going back, is that I know for sure that there's a benefit that comes from it. It's not, I don't know, when I was in construction, there was this perception of like people that go to therapists, they just go and then they're whinging and crying, and it's do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course I do, yeah. I was one of those people, by the way. I mean, unfortunately, I would say these things or come very close to saying them on the radio. So it's on the record with me. A load of old nonsense. I'm flipping heck. What are you talking about? And here we are. Here we are.
And it's taken me a few years to get there, but I've realised that like that part of, I don't know if you want to call it being a man or whatever, however you want to dress it. A part of it is being able to discuss these things openly and honestly, whether it's with a therapist or with your partner, your wife, whoever, and say like, these are things that are troubling me, and I want to work through them. And there is a strength, and I think it's the correct word for that. There's a strength that comes from that.
Yes, and you know, we can't carry this alone, and the people that love us wouldn't want us to. Has she seen a difference in you? I presume she has.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like nothing's a straight line, and I have slip-ups and
yeah, of course,
and sort of stutter steps here and there. But like on the whole, I'd say she's seen a positive impact.
Well, they call it doing the work, don't they? And you know, if you're doing the work, things will get better. But Rome wasn't built in a day, or even indeed rebuilt in a day. It's lovely to hear that, actually, and an awful lot of messages coming in. Acknowledging that conversations like this, whether you're having them with a therapist, as Brian refers to, or whether you're having them with a group of men that you didn't know before on these multiple organisations like Andy's Man Club and Men Walking and Talking and the Proper Blokes Club, or even, and this is obviously the stuff that gets me right in the emotions, even having listened to programmes like this in the past, and the number of people getting in touch to say how much that has helped them to take the next step in pursuit of help is incredibly moving. Take care, Brian. Claire is in Maryport in Cumbria. Claire, what would you like to say?
Hi, morning, James.
Hello,
Hi, really lovely to speak to you.
Likewise.
And thank you so much for talking about this, because it's so important. And I'm a GP myself, and I'm the mental health lead for the practice. So I've been a GP for a long time now, and helped a lot of people, hopefully. But then to have it happen to myself has been the biggest surprise. And when you were saying that you can that it can happen to anybody at any time, I've always been the positive person that holds everyone together and keeps everything going in the right direction and puts a smile on and is the one that helps everybody else. But in doing so, I've been like a swan with the sort of gliding along with the legs going under the surface, and until I had an episode of burnout about 3 or 4 years ago, when it just hit me like a ton of bricks, James, and it was just absolutely awful to go through that myself. And I think it's been on a background of having anxiety most of my life, really, and high functioning anxiety, where I've just kept going and kept going and kept going, and you just get to a point when you literally can't. And I woke up one day and I literally couldn't get out of bed. I felt
really?
so anxious, couldn't get out of bed.
I mean,
it hit me.
In terms of what you were conscious of,
yes.
Was it the culmination of a slow... in terms of what you felt at the time? Because now you know that it was like a straw camel back scenario.
Absolutely.
And all the straws are tiny, but there's so many of them eventually that the back breaks. But on that morning, it felt like a juggernaut had just come out of nowhere, did it?
Literally.
Right.
It did. But when I look back, I've now had a lot of therapy since I kind of reached out, and there's so much support out there if you just speak up, and I've had a lot of therapy and been aware of how you can get into that anxiety and burnout cycle where you feel you're not coping, so you work harder. You then feel more exhausted. Then you feel you're not coping enough, and then you work harder again, and it just spirals until. And we're all just human. We're not robots, and you get to a point when how much can one person take, you know? And it was that did it. And interestingly, at the moment, I'm actually off at work at the moment, having spotted that cycle starting again, and actually being aware of it. And I just
need to press pause for a while. I just need to refill, as it were, restore.
Yeah, that's it. And it's actually, I think, going through it myself and going through the experience myself has probably made me a better GP in that
I'm sure it has.
I can really empathise with people as to what it's actually like to go through it, and I think that has helped other people. But gosh, it's just been horrible. It's so difficult.
It's the same with this tough guy thing that I've mentioned a few times. For a medical professional to describe it speaks so directly to this could absolutely happen to anybody, doesn't it? And it could happen to you, even someone leading on mental health in a GP surgery.
Absolutely, and I think I'd probably be the last person that anybody would think would have mental health problems when you see me on the surface, because I'm always smiling, I'm always positive. I'm always trying to look after everybody else, but it can happen to anybody, and it's so important that you can't look after other people if you don't look after yourself, ultimately. And you've got to, I always say that it's like we're all juggling 100 balls, and you've got to make sure that yours is the biggest ball in amongst them, which sounds really cheesy, but it's so true. You have to look after yourself. And I remember going to a course, a training course, a GP training course, when there must have been 400 GPs there, and we were talking about mental health and burnout and self-care and self-compassion, and the speaker said, so what would you do if you felt this was happening to you? And everybody went quiet, James. I couldn't believe everybody went quiet. And I put my hand up and said, you must reach out for help. And I just couldn't believe that there wasn't a single person in that room that would say that, Yes. And that just sums up how...
I can believe it. I mean, I know you can believe it. It's a figure of speech, but of course it makes... I mean, what would I do? What would you do? I can't reach out for help. I'm the helper, they're thinking subconsciously.
That's it, exactly. And I went to a group called Practitioner Help. I reached out for, they're called Practitioner Health, who support doctors and dentists through mental health and addiction. They also deal with alcoholism and drug addiction, and as well as all different mental health problems. And they have been fabulous. I can't fault the care that they've given, and also... And they're there to help people like GPs gain access when you know everybody in the area.
Of course. I hadn't thought of that as an issue. You can't go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, for example, because it will be full of your patients.
Absolutely.
If you're a GP, gosh.
And all the GPs talk to all the GPs. So it is obviously without breaking confidentiality, but you all know each other.
That's everything. Every call today has spoken about the power of connection, hasn't it? And recognition. And those are the enemies of loneliness, in a way, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're the enemies of loneliness. And you don't have to be getting married to these people or spending Christmas with them or inviting them on holiday. It's just the moments of recognition and reflection and familiarity. I love that. I'm so glad you were listening today.
Thank you, James.
No, thank you, and I hope your period of recovery is short and sweet. I really do. It is 3 minutes after 11.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 7 minutes after 11, and I warned you yesterday that this was likely to happen. I was unsatisfied with the phone-in that we had on Tuesday about Joshua Bonehill Payne, or the former neo-Nazi who was seeking to become a Conservative councillor, as he has become better known. You can't see the phrase "former neo-Nazi" in a headline without stopping to have a look, can you? It's in a world where words are losing much of their power with overuse and inaccurate use. Thank God they still matter, but not enough, it would seem, to persuade Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, that he shouldn't be allowed anywhere near public office. She had defended him in, very strong terms, although she did distinguish between local office and a, quote, national platform, saying he is standing to be a councillor in Somerset. It is a local platform looking at parking, sorting out bins. That's what councillors do. I think that's a little bit unfair on councillors, actually, Ms. Badenoch, but given that you won't have done any research at all before making that statement, I suppose it is only to be expected. That's what councillors do. It's not a national platform. I have much higher thresholds for what it takes to be a Conservative MP. This man is not standing to be an MP. There's a huge difference. A few hours later, the man standing to be a councillor, but not an MP, because that's a crucial distinction, remember. The man standing to be a Conservative councillor said, the last 24 hours have shown that a lot of people do not understand how terrible I feel about the things I did when I was much younger. I know that my previous actions continue to cause pain in the Jewish community. I had thought that getting involved in my local council and working hard for my community was a good way to show how much I have changed. He has now accepted an offer to become an advisor to the Conservative Party's Culture and Integration Commission. So, perhaps I'm reading this wrong. He's been given a national platform by Kemi Badenoch. I don't know what you consider to be more important, sorting out bins or being an advisor to the Conservative Party's Culture and Integration Commission, specifically, and I quote, focusing on how young men become radicalised. Kemi Badenoch is sad. Kemi Badenoch is sad that Bonehill Payne has withdrawn, but, and I quote, glad he is going to work with me and the party on tackling radicalisation. And she said, I see this man as somebody who has been rehabilitated. I haven't seen any apologies from him for his Islamophobic activity, but he was imprisoned, and this may be why he's focused on his apologies to the Jewish community, because he was not imprisoned, I don't think, for his... for the hatred directed at Muslims. He was imprisoned for producing an advert featuring an image of Auschwitz that promised, I'm doing trigger warnings galore today. I don't think this needs one, but I'll tell you now, it's gross. He produced an advert for I think it was for a rally, that promised an absolute gas. Get it? It's the kind of thing that Nigel Farage reportedly used to joke about when he was at Dulwich College as a schoolboy, isn't it? According to several of his contemporaries at that school. But the picture of Auschwitz promising an absolute gas at a rally in Golders Green, a famously Jewish area of North London. And Luciana Berger, of course, the former Labour MP who now sits in the House of Lords, was the target of even more of his anti-Semitic hatred, describing her as an evil money grabber and alleging a deep-rooted hatred of men, which is always a bit of a red flag, isn't it? And he had also claimed that the number of Jewish Labour MPs was a, quote, problem. What if he's telling the truth? What if he's telling the truth? I think I know why Kemi Badenoch has dropped the ball so spectacularly on this, because when I came off air on Tuesday, I couldn't quite believe. This isn't true. This isn't true. I was a proper pendulum on Tuesday, by which I simply mean that my position swang from one side to the other with almost every call. And that I thought the clincher, it was the final caller that actually made me think I'd been a complete muppet, and that obviously you can't have a former neo-Nazi going into politics, whether it's local or national. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm still a bit torn, and the reason why I'm torn is embarrassingly conceited, all right? The reason why I'm torn is because if you rang me and told me that you used to be a Nazi, but that listening to this programme had cured you of your Nazism, then A, I would believe you, and B, I would be delighted to discover that you are now dedicating yourself to spreading the word. But would I want you to be a councillor? And the only bit of that imaginary scenario I can imagine, and there's two things going on. It wouldn't cross my mind that you were lying, or if it crossed my mind, I would dismiss it fairly quickly. That's what I mean by conceited. Possibly my own self-congratulation would drown out any voices of scepticism, but it would be a weird thing to do, right? To ring me and lie about this stuff. But then again, you know, weird things happen. But I just wanted to mention that if I was looking at this story through that lens, ever so slightly rose-tinted by imagined personal involvement, then I would have arrived at a different conclusion from the one that I arrive at when looking at through the lens of, for example, Kemi Badenoch's absurdity and ridiculousness. So what questions are raised by this story? Can rehabilitation ever be so complete and absolute? Yeah, I absolutely believe that it can. I completely believe that a former Nazi can become a tireless and passionate campaigner for decency and equality. I passionately believe that, and I think I always will. Even if you find me a former Nazi who's lying about it and gets busted for lying about it or has gone back to his old ways, I'd still believe in the power of redemption and rehabilitation for all the other Nazis. You kind of have to, right? It's kind of the human condition. So that's question number one. Question number two, should a reformed Nazi be allowed to be a councillor for any party? I don't think it was very funny when you got in touch with me on Tuesday to suggest the fact that he'd chosen the Conservative Party meant that he couldn't be that reformed. That's not fair. You know, we've got far-right politics in this country at the moment in a way that has never been in the mainstream in the way that it is now. The National Front and BNP must be sitting there thinking, what the hell did we do wrong in the 1970s and 80s? We'd be on top of the opinion polls these days, or we'd be, you know, winning council seats. But that's not the point either, because this guy has eschewed far-right ideology and embraced Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party. And there were a few of the things that she said. I mean, I'm tempted to add another question to the list, which is, why on earth is Kemi Badenoch sad? But we'd be here all day, wouldn't we? A few of the things that she'd said I found really persuasive. How can you believe in this is, I suppose, the phone-in, all right? How can you believe in rehabilitation, which I do? I believe in the power of redemption. I believe it is entirely possible to abandon hatred, bigotry, far-right, the farthest right ideology imaginable, because of what it means to be human. You know, so someone who watches the television and sees brown and black faces and says that it drives her mad, I believe it's possible for her to stop feeling mad when she sees brown and black faces, with a little bit of help and a little bit of empathy, perhaps. And I just believe that it's possible to abandon completely, not just to edge away from, but to abandon completely all of the ancient hatreds. You know? But that's not necessarily grounds for saying, yeah, of course you can be a councillor. Of course you can be a councillor. I mean, tempted to ask you very simply, what do you think of this story? Let's do that first. 0345 606 0973. Because I don't know whether I'm coming or going. I simultaneously think it's absolutely absurd. This is mad. This is cognitive dissonance. This is exactly the thing I always castigate other people for. It's absolutely bonkers that Kemi Badenoch thought a former neo-Nazi who's been to jail for anti-Semitic hatred could be a councillor just a few years later. It's bonkers, right? And by all the metrics of politics or democratic discourse, this is beyond belief. She still doesn't get it. She's still sad that he's not. But at the same time, I passionately believe, and I don't use that word very often, I passionately believe that you can undergo 180-degree reversals of your beliefs and opinions. I've done it myself on much less serious issues and much less serious levels, but still things that I took to be completely true, I now find ridiculous. More in the arena of opinions, not in the arena of race hate, I grant you, but I suppose in a way the question to ask is, could I become a Nazi with a prevailing wind behind me and some evil influences around me? If I'd been raised by Nazis, would I be a Nazi? Can I become a Nazi? Because if I could become a Nazi, then a Nazi can become a non-Nazi or a former Nazi. An ex-Nazi, don't mention Monty Python at this point, just making the Nazi sound like a dead parrot. What? Yeah, that's it, actually. What is this story about? 0345 6060 973. My religion is Christianity. I was raised a Catholic. Catholicism or Christianity is still a great comfort to me at times in my life, while simultaneously I fully accept the analysis of people who think it's all a load of nonsense about sky fairies. A bit more cognitive dissonance, I suppose. I've always thought of religion in my quieter moments as doing two things. Number one, it provides you with a sort of solace. You know, in the same way that some people might meditate or go to yoga or even watch football. It just lets you get out of your own head for a while and reflect upon things that you would benefit from reflecting on. There's a relationship between what I'm describing and what we were talking about in the last hour. You know, my mental health is improved by spending time in church sometimes, on my own, not even a church service. And sometimes I go along to a church service and it makes me feel part of something bigger, and it makes me... And the other thing that my religion has given me over the life is a desire, to paraphrase Jack Nicholson in As Good As It Gets, it makes me want to be a better person. Right? You make me want to be a better person. And that's not a bad thing to feel either, right? You kind of want to be a better person. But Catholicism also teaches very deeply the concepts of redemption and forgiveness. Forgiveness. You know, what is the saying? To err is human, to forgive is divine? I've probably made that up or misremembered it completely. But don't... And I'm not the target of this character's... although, having said that, back in the day, I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the people that would come for me on Twitter, given some of his other targets and political attitudes. But I was not the target of his hatred. I am not Jewish. I am not Muslim. I was not the target of the hatred, so it's not for me to forgive. But to err is human, to forgive is divine. It's one of the most powerful things that a human being can do, is to forgive. So... what is the relationship between redemption and Here's a phone-in for you, lads. What's the relationship between redemption, forgiveness and Nazism? 0345 6060 973. Is it that word? I love the way Sheila says it, by the way. I love the way all Liverpudlians say Nazi. It's somehow got a sharper ring to it when it comes out of a Scouser's mouth. Nazi. I say Nazi. I don't know why. I say Bath, to be honest with you. Hardly anyone says Bath. And if you want to continue down the Catholic tip, I say Mass instead of Mass. I don't think anyone says Mass instead of Mass in this country, except people who went to my actual school. Mass. What on earth is Mass? I'm going to Mass on Sunday. I don't... Mass. I still say it. So I believe... in the gods of America. No, I believe in forgiveness. I passionately believe in forgiveness, redemption, rehabilitation. And if you believe passionately in forgiveness, redemption and rehabilitation, then you should extend that forgiveness to a former Nazi who wants to be a councillor. Right? Right? So why can't I? Or why can't you? Or why can you? Why can you? What is it about this history that made that future so impossible or so undesirable? How can you believe in redemption, rehabilitation and forgiveness deeply, properly, powerfully? For the record, I don't think Kemi Badenoch does, actually, because of the way she's talked about other people in the past, but I do. You'll have to take my word for it. I believe passionately in this, to the point where on Tuesday I was arguing that he should be allowed to run. And then by the end of that phone-in, I was thinking, what the hell was wrong with you? And then I'm on the bus home and I'm thinking, no, he should be allowed to run. And then I'm on the tube and I'm thinking, no, he shouldn't be allowed. I can't remember the last time I was in such a tizzy. You probably can, don't at me. But and talking to colleagues as well. I often envy certainty. And at other times, I really don't envy certainty, because I think certainty can be really dangerous. If certainty is the married to incuriosity, it's really dangerous. I've got really strong opinions. Remember that caller we had a few months ago? I've got really strong opinions, but don't ask me to back any of them up. They're the most dangerous people on the planet, apart from the Nazis. Why can't I make my mind up? Can I do a phone-in on that? Why can't I make my mind up about this? 0345 6060 973. It just shouldn't be allowed to run for council. But we forgive. We teach each other to forgive. We teach our children to forgive. But we're not going to forgive this guy. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Again, Cami Badenoch has managed to take a situation that was already toxic and somehow render it simultaneously worse and ridiculous. She's stuck up for him, and lo and behold, he's pulled himself out of the council election anyway. So she's got the fact that she's stuck up for the Nazi, the former Nazi. She's got that hung round her neck, and she hasn't even got the victory, such as it would be, of him ending up on the council anyway. Just so you know, because Luciana Berger spoke very powerfully about this yesterday, it was during the court case involving her that he thought it appropriate to do a Nazi salute, or a Nazi salute, as she would say, Sheila, a Nazi salute in the Old Bailey in the direction of his supporters in the gallery. And that was when he was on trial for publishing a series of blog posts about her. How can you, here's the question, I got there in the end, it's nearly past. How can you simultaneously believe as deeply as I do in the power and the importance of forgiveness and redemption and still think that Cami Badenoch was absolutely bonkers to think that this bloke could be a councillor? How can you have both of those opinions at the same time? And if you haven't, if you've got one strong opinion and it's not conflicting or contrary to another one, then maybe you can help me out on 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
This is one of the daftest messages I've ever received. But, Warren, the way you sort of plaintively ask at the end, isn't it comparable with a question mark, makes me think you don't deserve to go into Idiot's Corner. You maybe, I don't know, deserve slightly different treatment. I'll read that one out shortly. But I'm just very, very confused, actually, which is rare for me. Not, mega rare. It's not as rare as hen's teeth. But I normally, if you show me a story with the word Nazi in the headline, and I'll show you a strong opinion. Yeah, down with Nazis would be my go-to position. Former Nazis? Yeah, okay, still, I'm not sure I want you around for tea. But I believe in redemption, and I celebrate stories of redemption and rehabilitation. So surely I have to agree with Cami Badenoch that there's no problem whatsoever. In fact, it might be a net positive for this bloke to become a councillor. Oh, good. Joe's on the line. Joe, shall I tell people who you are, Joe, or do you want to?
You can.
So you are Joe Berry, and since losing your dad in an IRA attack, Sir Anthony Berry, you have moved mountains in precisely the field that we're talking about, rehabilitation and forgiveness, redemption. So I can't wait. I'll shut up now and just listen to what you've got to say on this subject, Joe.
Well, I love the complexity around this whole area, because that's where I live in that world as well. So I was thinking back to a conference I went to in Dublin, which was made up of formers, and these are former neo-Nazis from America, former combatants from around the world, and then victims, people who have been affected by actions of combatants. And I remember the first time I saw an ex-neo-Nazi, I was like, I have nothing in common with you. I felt quite judgmental about how they looked and how they spoke. But by the end of the conference, I understood and I connected. And what I found about the formers I've met is like the whole life is about stopping other people going the way they went and also repairing the harm. And that's what I don't see happening right now, is that there's no repairing the harm. So with the ex-combatants who I'm with, I was actually with him in Belfast just a few days ago, Patrick McGee, who planted the bomb that killed my dad.
Gosh.
His whole motivation is repairing the harm and making sure other people don't go the way that he went, and making sure young people have choices, and also talking about the cost of being violent. I think it's repairing the harm that's missing for me.
From this story, from Bonehill Payne's story, but the work that he does, and let me get the words exactly right, he has accepted an offer to become an advisor to the Conservative Party's Culture and Integration Commission, quotes, specifically focusing on how young men become radicalised. Is that not?
That's part of the story,
yes,
and that's fantastic. I don't think he needs to do it in that way, though, because there are people. He has victims, doesn't he? He has people who've been hurt by him, and they're going to be re-traumatised all the time that he's now in the public eye. And I don't see a sensitivity. And I heard you say he'd also not been very nice to the Muslim community.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of harm he's done. There's a lot of people who are going to be triggered by him because of who he used to be. And though he does say that he's changed, and I do believe in change. Obviously, I believe in change.
Of course.
I think there isn't sensitivity. He doesn't have that sensitivity. Am I doing what I can best do without hurting people even more than I already have?
So you're bringing, so these are specifics. These are very subjective considerations to the specific case under discussion. That's part of the complexity, isn't it? Because I'm somewhat naively groping for a rule that would apply across all areas to all formers, to all people who, I mean, if we just accept or believe that they are all sincere in their redemption and sincere in their repentance, then there is a rule about what they can all do, but there won't be, because it will be the thing that you are repenting is going to have a relationship with the thing that you want to do next. That's what you're bringing to the table, the idea that, I can believe him completely, but he can't do that because he did that.
Yeah. I'm wondering if he's asking himself the questions, is this the most sensitive way I can create change in the world? Like, I understand he wants to create change, and that's fantastic. There's a lot of people doing change in the area he's working on. I know a lot of formers in this country who are working under the radar, trying to stop young people joining the routes they went to, but they're not doing it in the public eye.
So that is...
Maybe, I don't know.
No, I'm thinking that he is looking for a spotlight. And arguably the most powerful work in these kind of fields can be done in the darkness, can be done in the shadows. Can I ask you a weird question?
Always.
Thank you. What if Patrick McGee announced that he wanted to go into politics?
I've thought about that.
Have you?
And yes. And there are... I mean, Northern Ireland is an unusual situation.
Yes, if we're going to talk about specifics, you can say that again.
So there probably are some ex-combatants that went into politics, so that's one of the things that it's hard to talk about. Anyway, Patrick McGee, I would find it very difficult.
You would, even though you have a relationship with him now and you speak often together about the importance of all of those R words that we're discussing today, redemption and rehabilitation and of course the big one, forgiveness. They would just seem as if there were some thresholds that you have surrendered the right to cross in the future because of what you did in the past, however powerfully and sincerely you repent.
Yeah.
No?
I do. Well, not personally, but I think for my family, for other people that have been affected by terrorism,
yes,
I think it would be hard.
Yes.
And we already ask so much for people who've been through trauma that I just think it's a step too great, and it shows a lack of sensitivity. And if you want to change the world, fantastic. There's many, many ways. Why choose one, as you said, spotlight, which is going to trigger people. It's going to remind people of who he was.
Yeah.
I might change my mind in a few hours, but...
No, well, I mean, you and me both, Joe, but that, of course, brings us back to Kemi Badenoch and a certain tin-earedness to not realising that this isn't about what she thinks about Joshua Bonehill Payne. This is what the targets of his hatred and the victims of his crimes, it's about how they would feel.
Exactly.
And I
think it's her certainty that worries me.
Yeah, me too. Although
in many ways.
Yeah, it's characteristic, isn't it? I think we can.
I think so. Yeah.
We can agree on that. Henry Riley's been looking at one possible reason why she's managed to get this so wrong, so completely wrong, and he'll be joining us shortly. So again, I mean, I love the fact that you say you dedicated so much of your life to trying to chart these waters. I love the fact you say you might change your mind in 10 minutes.
Oh, yes. Because I think certainty is one of the biggest obstacles we have to creating the world we want to have. And I was with some people in Belfast who were so certain they were right about the recent riots, and they'd taken part in them. Yeah. And to meet that wall of certainty, I find it quite scary.
Yeah. Well, it is scary. I mean, that's when the really bad stuff happens, isn't it? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it was Pat's certainty that enabled him to kill my father, which he doesn't have that certainty now. That's what's changed, but is that certainty? I'm so right, and I know you're the problem, and that gives me the right to do this to you.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah, and that can't just be, that slate can never be completely wiped clean, I don't think. Joe, thank you. It's always a privilege to talk to you, but never more so when your insights into an issue are so personal and so powerful. It's 25 to 12, though. I do have to move on because Matt Hewitt has your headline.
James O'Brien on LBC.
I think a few, things you could do to repent of your previous opinions and behaviours can extend quite far into the public space without actually being a public representative, without actually being a councillor. And yet, if Jo Berry can reserve the right to change her mind about this story, then I feel a lot less embarrassed that I can't completely make mine up. It is 11:38, although I do think that we've worked out why Kemi Badenoch has managed to make such an almighty mess of this story, of this issue, and it's probably quite easy for you to work out the answer. In fact, speaking of Kemi Badenoch, I'm going to make radio history, but again, before 12 o'clock today. It begins with a missing word round. I can say no more than that. It begins with a missing word round, but it ends with radio history being made live on the radio. Now, a quick word of caution. It's radio history only really in the context of the nonsense that we share together every day. It's not radio history like the other radio history that we make on the programme, like being the most popular speech programme in the history of UK commercial radio. That's proper radio history. The radio history we're going to make later today, before 12 noon when Mystery Hour is upon us, is not of that ilk. It's ridiculous, really. It's very silly history, but I think you'll find it as amusing as I intend to, or hope to. It begins with a missing word round, which of course doesn't have a jingle. There's a little clue there as to what the radio history that we're making later in the programme might be. It begins with a missing word round. In fact, if we were to deploy a jingle at this point, it would be because the missing word round, when you find out the word, would actually constitute an unhinged headline. But I don't think we can trigger the unhinged headline sting until you know what the missing word is, because it's not unhinged while the word is missing. That's clue number 2. I told you it was silly, but it's radio history. Are you ready? So we begin with the missing word round of a headline that will become unhinged when you know what the missing word is. And that's the biggest clue of all as to what the third piece of this jigsaw might prove to be. I've given it. No, I haven't. Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Badenoch rejects coalition with blank reform. That's reform with a capital R, so it's Farage's crew. Badenoch rejects coalition with blank reform. What is the missing word, do you think? Stay tuned to find out. Back to this extraordinary story of the former neo-Nazi who Kemi Badenoch wants to put in charge of your bins. Michael's in Chelmsford. Michael, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. James, I just want to say that I think the reason why you might be finding it difficult to make up your mind is in the difference between forgiveness on the one hand and redemption and rehabilitation on the other hand. So what you will find it very easy to do, I believe, is to forgive. And when someone has repented and genuinely repented, we tend to most of us forgive. And society, as a society, we might forgive. As a victim, someone might forgive the crimes against them. But that can't offer them redemption.
Just losing the phone line. It's a shame because I need to hear what you're saying because I'm already sort of straining. As Joe said a moment ago, that there are complexities here, but if I can't make out every third word, then I'm not going to be able to keep up, I'm afraid. We'll try and fix that. Jack is in Hackney. Jack, what made you pick up the phone?
Hey, yeah. I heard the story and I've got some personal opinion on it. I think right now there's a difference between understanding that an individual can reform their personal character, but to be given a position of leadership, having been a part of I don't know whether his organisation that he was a part of was a banned organisation. I don't know whether I don't know the specifics, to be honest, of his acts, other than what you've reported on and what
I've covered most of it. I don't think there was any membership of a prescribed group, but he was...
But it's an extremist ideology.
Well, for sure, mate. I'm not arguing about that. I mean, he was a Nazi.
That's it. I mean, and that's my problem, really, which is...
It's my problem as well, to be clear. I mean, it's a flipping great problem.
I can't really... Like, I can kind of accept that someone may have gone through that and then maybe they've reformed their life, sure, but I'm never going to trust you.
Yeah.
And I rarely see ex-jihadi being given the same ease of entering into government positions, or ex-gang members that have done certain things.
I can argue with that, I think. I mean, it does happen. Is it Ed Hussein is a former Islamist who does actually do an awful lot of work in the area of de-radicalisation, and I think even... And former gang members are often the most powerful advocates for going down 100%, different paths.
But I would say there's a difference between taking ex-gang members, ex-Nazis, these types of people, and letting them work in the world of
and going into politics.
Yeah, because it's now about the fact that, I'll be honest, right? If I'm sat there and I'm paying my council tax every month, I feel very strongly about the
going
fact
to a Nazi.
Yeah, I don't like that. And
no, I don't like that either. I mean, I'm only laughing because there are elements of this, as I've said all along, Jack, there's elements of the conversation where I just go, how did this happen? How did she end up with a neo-Nazi running for the council? It's so ridiculous that you almost sort of snigger. Well, I am. But at the same time, it's deadly serious. It's deadly serious.
Oh, it is. And I think there's two other things which come to my mind, which is, one, sadly, many people know that back in like the 80s or the 70s, there was the emergence of like these neo-Nazi networks that would grow their hair back, not get tattoos, keep clean criminal record, and enter into positions of influence. Now, I'm not saying that that's what this guy...
But you're allowed to worry. You're allowed to...
But it's up there. Because it's a tactic used by those people, it has to be considered. And I think, actually, with your confusion as to how Kemi has done this, I am not surprised at all. She has an atrocious track record with regards to racism. And sadly, as a black British person, I know that she's routinely antagonized my community about such topics with such a poor understanding of racism and such a poor understanding of how people would react. I have to admit, I'm shocked that she's even come this far in her realizations, but I am not shocked at all that she would put her foot in her mouth and speak in such a way about this.
But she's managed to offend absolutely everybody. She's not only managed to offend the communities that he did abuse, and I think you're right. I think that the fact I'm not in one of them probably makes this a little bit more complex for me than it would be if I was. But she's also managed to offend every councillor in the country by saying that all they do is deal with bins.
Yeah. I mean, she's got a bit of a habit of obviously putting her foot in her mouth a lot, but I hate to say it, but culturally she has a very poor take on racism, and she sadly hasn't really understood people very well. I don't trust her. I don't trust her decision-making.
No, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. I missed a trick, I'm afraid, on Tuesday when she said, I think people can look at me and know I'm not a person who would be recruiting neo-Nazis, because that can only be a reference to her own ethnicity, right?
Yeah, she's playing you see, it's funny, someone like her would often use the phrase playing the race card, but she's playing into it. She knows that saying that would make certain people say, well, she's got black skin, she wouldn't do that. But if you're a black person and you don't have a historical understanding of racism, if you are antagonistic to your own community, well, you don't see yourself as a member of this black British community, which has been the victims of these neo-Nazi groups for as long as way back. So she will willingly use herself as a shield for that type of stuff, because it will also get her slightly out of trouble, but also because she just doesn't really get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually Henry Riley will join us shortly, and if you're still listening, Jack, because I understand that the words Henry Riley for many people are a prompt to turn off your radio. But when Henry joins us shortly, we think we've actually worked out what's really happened here. We think we've worked out on a very personal level, because you've been incredibly powerful. In fact, I just got a message saying, this guy's so clever, he's making me feel stupid. On a very personal level, it's a very personal Kemi Badenoch flavoured gaffe. This and I mean, I think it works, but we'll find out. Just briefly though, what about the appointment of him to a job in the Conservatives' Culture and Integration Commission, focusing on how young men become radicalised? Is that? Yeah.
I mean, I would say if he is in a consultancy-based role, consulting and assisting them with anti-radicalisation, I mean, like I said, me personally, I'm very off. Like, once you're a part of that, I don't trust you, and I never will. But I'm not going to sit here and act as if previous ex-neo-Nazis haven't converted and been a part of sweeping efforts to try and change things. That seems slightly more feasible, but in terms of a leadership position hired by the party and in positions of power and all that type of stuff,
influence.
That is a complete
position of influence. I reserve the right to swing again, Jack, but I'm going to struggle to come up with a justification if I do end up on the other side of this argument that's as powerful as yours for being on the side of the argument that you're on. I mean, and couple that with what Joe said about the specifics of a case. There are things you can do that mean you should not be allowed to do other things. You can still subscribe wholeheartedly to doctrines of redemption and forgiveness, but you can't be a councillor, you can't be a politician if you have relatively recently, there could be a chronological argument here, if it's 20 years later, if Profumo had wanted to go back into politics after working with London's homeless for 30 years, after he left politics as a consequence of a sex scandal, it would have been very different to him turning around 2, 3, 10 years, 5 years later and saying, I've repented now, I'm back, I'm different, I've changed. Oof, thank you, Jack. It's 11:49, and we will have Henry with us, which is, of course, a prompt for many, many people to turn their radio volume up. Henry Riley will be with us after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:52. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. The missing word round. No one has correctly guessed, except someone who made the mistake of showing me that they'd actually looked it up. Ready? Badenoch rejects coalition with blank reform. Shall I tell you now what it is? Henry, do you know what it is? I told you what it is. I'll do it. Henry Riley is here to solve the mystery of why we think Kemi Badenoch has or had such a blind spot for this particular former Nazi.
Yes, and so this, as you've been talking about this hour, James, Joshua Bonehill Payne, I thought first I'd bring you all the charges that relate to him as well. So the first one was the conviction for assaulting a police officer and burglary of a police station when he was 18. He broke into Chard police station in 2011. He stole a uniform, body armour, a baton, handcuffs, and was given a community order at Yeovil Magistrates Court. In 2014, he was convicted of malicious communications over an anti-Islam hoax that led to death threats against the owner of a pub in Leicester. The Globe in Leicester had to close because people were threatening to firebomb it and kill the staff after a website he was running had falsely claimed that the pub had banned all military personnel to avoid offending immigrants. Right. He was jailed in 2015, as again you mentioned, for more than 3 years after posting vile anti-Semitic material online ahead of a planned neo-Nazi rally. In 2015, under the Public Order Act, he was involved in a fake poster claiming that an illegal immigrant with Ebola was missing in Leicester, with posters being put up around the city. He was also behind a false campaign that a white British girl had been abducted by an Asian grooming gang in Croydon. In 2016, he was found guilty of racially aggravated harassment for abuse directed at Luciana Berger, again, which you've spoken about. Very offensive things like being a rodent and an evil money grabber. And then he was previously involved with the National British Resistance. So, I mean, there's clearly quite the history there. And Kemi Badenoch has really been out on a limb, as you said, James, to defend this man at the expense of offending some Conservative councillors. This was Kemi Badenoch speaking with the BBC.
He is standing to be a councillor in Somerset. It is a local platform looking at parking, sorting out bins. That's what councillors do. It's not a national platform. And I have much higher thresholds for what it takes to be a Conservative MP.
Yeah, and parking and bins, I think, particularly offensive to some councillors who would argue.
I was talking to a local businessman in Brentford the other day about a building that we're concerned about because it's brown asbestos.
Oh, right.
And we go to the council about that. That's just one example of something that's neither parking nor bins and is potentially a matter of life and death. But hey-ho, Badenoch knows better.
And social care as well, of course, a huge part of what councils do. So this individual, clearly very close. I mean, Kemi Badenoch saying yesterday he is going to have this new role as a sort of advisor. So he's sort of not important enough to go beyond parking and bins, but he is now going to be an advisor on countering extremism, which is obviously, very an important issue. And he's going to be advising the Conservative Party, which some people have raised an eyebrow about. He's very influential online. If you look at YouTube, he has more than 50,000 followers, but some of the videos are getting 500,000 views for sort of rap videos, of which you'll hear in a moment. He's got more than 40,000 followers on X. Those videos do even better on X, some getting millions of views, and they depict a whole host of different people. I mean, some are quite offensive, James, I'll be honest. I mean...
to whom, though?
This is difficult to say. People who perhaps have glasses, an offensive word for people who have glasses, beginning with S, a four-letter word beginning with T, and that was targeting Darren Jones, Andy Burnham, and
so he
Keir
continues
Starmer.
To be very abusive to some politicians.
Yes.
Right.
And if you look at the videos, James...
I mean, probably won't. That's why you're here.
Well, let me play. So this is a rap of Kemi Badenoch on a housing estate. Just listen to this. It's a Kemi rap.
Andy, blink if you're PM. Labour change leader by 10:15. No vote, no mandate, no plan in sight. Just two fake lashes and a black t-shirt night. You turn left, you turn right. Labour in ruins by broad daylight. Kemi stood up and she ended the fight. Mr. Speaker, it's the lashes and a black t-shirt, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite good. And also puts Kemi Badenoch in a great light, right? I mean, she's...
now we're getting
Here we are, defeating this guy in a black T-shirt. Whereas
Kemi Badenoch reportedly terminally online. And an awful lot of her decisions and interventions in public life only really make sense if you imagine her spending her entire life scrolling through Twitter. And here is somebody casting her as a sort of cross between Margaret Thatcher and Boudica with a side order of Beyoncé.
I mean, she looks very cool in the videos as well. Contrasted with Andy Burnham, who's on the floor with a massive belly, actually, which I don't think he has in real life, but they make him out to be sort of absurdly fat. Anyway, this is the Andy Burnham rap.
No manifesto, no crown, no vote, just a selfie vid in a northern coat. Keir got binned, Reeves got shook. I became PM by a Facebook look. Blink, blink, Burnham, saviour in sight. Mascara Marxist in a fitted tea-tie. Merseyside mouth with a Manchester spin. Lost the whole plot, but I'm trying to grin. La, I'm casual, la, I'm real. Got more...
And it goes on.
AI generated, but you need to program AI. And
exactly.
In summary... He makes Kemi Badenoch look fantastic while attacking her political rivals.
That's right. And the last one I'm going to play you, James, I'm not going to play the whole album.
This is turning into a music programme.
No, I know.
I've always wanted to be a proper DJ.
I think what's interesting is it was previously pro-Nigel Farage and pro-Kemi Badenoch.
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting is, since, of course, those two have been at loggerheads, it's turned into being very pro-Kemi Badenoch from what I can see. But this was posted not long ago. This was Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, who's wearing a sort of Paul Weller-style fur coat and looking quite cool himself. This is them rapping together.
We don't like each other, but we hate Stormer more. Kick down the budget, then we kick down the door. Nigel in the pub and Kimmy on the floor, shouting, who the hell's in charge, cause it ain't Stormer anymore. Hey. Who the hell's in charge, cause it ain't Stormer anymore. Hey.
We don't like each other, but we hate Stormer more. Kick down the budget. budget, then we kick down the door.
That's Kemi Badenoch in the last bit. Quite catchy, but anyway. There's also another interesting part to this, James, in that Reform UK
This
are
is
asking...
the guy that she's putting in.
This is the guy
wants to be a councillor and is now advising.
He's now advising on extremism. The last thing I would say is
there it is.
Reform UK are actually asking for an apology from Kemi Badenoch because she had told Jewish News that he was giving police officers, for example, training on anti-Semitism because he'd seen the error of his ways. And actually, Jewish News got a statement from the Home Office saying the Home Office does not certify individuals to deliver training. So,
really?
Yeah, so Reform is saying Kemi Badenoch needs to apologise when this is a, quote, total fabrication of what she had claimed.
Well, I mean, I've got the words here. They're still in today's newspaper. Josh is someone who actually has been certified by the Home Office to train police officers on anti-Semitism and on countering extremism, and they're saying that's not true.
That source that spoke to Jewish News.
Did Farage ever apologise for all the anti-Semitism that his former school friends alleged that he directed at them?
He has not apologised for that.
I didn't think so. Do you want to have a go at this? Badenoch rejects... Because this is radio history. Do you want to stay in the studio to witness some radio history? You'll be making radio history of your own soon, Henry.
Thank you. I don't know.
So this is the missing word round. Badenoch rejects coalition with blank reform. And the answer is... woke. So Badenoch rejects a coalition with reform because they're too woke. She has said that Nigel Farage is the leader of a woke party. And she couldn't ever form a coalition with them because she could never trust Robert Jenrick or Suella Braverman, thus reminding us that even a stopped clock is right twice a day. So we've got an unhinged... we now know that this, Badenoch rejects coalition with woke reform, is an...
unhinged headline.
But of course, it's also, which we haven't done for a while...
Woke Watch.
And it's a missing word round. So there are only currently 4 features live on the programme. Because it's not the Andy Burnham Baron. In terms of things that we take from the news and then comment upon them and give them a silly name and maybe play a little daft jingle, there's only 3 currently live, or 4 currently live. This one, I think, hits all 3 corners of the triangle. It is a missing word round. It is an unhinged headline. And it is a woke watch. And that, Henry Riley, is how you make radio history.
Amazing. I was here to witness it as well.
It's 12:01.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Is it that time already? 5 minutes after 12. Just to nod back towards the last hour, even now, even in Matt's news bulletin there, a senior Conservative has said it's a shame that a former neo-Nazi... Just listen to the words, lads. A senior Conservative has said it's a shame that a former neo-Nazi... What? Pardon? A former neo-Nazi what? Won't be standing for us in a forthcoming election. Anyway, thank goodness Kemi Badenoch never commits gaffes, because if she did, that would be really embarrassing, wouldn't it? There's a Labour councillor in the news as well, a former parliamentary candidate, no less, actually, not a councillor, who's just been sent to jail for 4 years after using fake degree certificates from leading universities to gain more than a dozen senior NHS roles. So... not confined, of course, to the Conservatives, problems with putative candidates, but only one of them is a former Nazi, and only one of them is now going to prison rather than being put on the council candidates roster after coming out of prison for hate crimes. Which makes it quite a relief, doesn't it, that Mystery Hour is upon us once again, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio. If you don't know about this feature, if you are among the new listeners to this programme, because you don't get figures like the ones that you have heard being reported today without, of course, drawing new people to the programme over a period of years. It's a shame they never... If I get... When I get bad radars, it will be a news story. When my numbers go down, you will be able to read about it, not just on the sort of weird websites, but quite possibly these days in the right-wing newspapers as well. But when they're good, never a whisper. You'll never hear a single thing about it. It's why I have to blow my own trumpet, because no one else will. But when they're bad, you'll probably read about it in the Telegraph. You'll probably read about it in the Mail. Just pointing it out. I don't know violins necessary, just a little indication of how bonkers our world has become. And speaking of bonkers, I do actually have a brilliant misinformation today, which I've completely forgotten to share with you, but you usually prefer it if I don't interrupt Mystery Hour with other nonsense. So remind me to do the nonsense tomorrow, will you? Because Mystery Hour is pretty close to sacrosanct in your radio listening. 03456060973 is the number you need if you've got a question that needs an answer. And there's an important bit of that sentence. It needs to be a question that you are confident must have an answer. A mystery, if you like. A who, a why, a what, a where, a when, a whither. Even the occasional wherefore art thou. And if you know the answer, then you ring in and provide it. And that's all that happens. It can be really quite serious. Someone can ring in with a question that demands a degree of scientific knowledge. It can be silly. It can be somewhere between the two. It can be something that sounds silly and turns out to be serious. But the only thing it needs to be is something that will pique the curiosity of the rest of us. As in, someone will hear you ask the question and go, "Oh, not every question. You can't please all of the people all of the time, but there will be some questions in the course of the next 50 minutes that prick your curiosity." And they don't get on the board unless the team think they're going to prick mine, of course. And very occasionally, they don't prick my curiosity at all, at which point I do a little bit of performative grumpiness and tell off my beloved and esteemed colleagues, to which there is not supposed to be a great deal of repetition, and they don't they're not supposed to put through motoring questions. But I'm a much mellower man today than I was when I introduced those rules. So if they put through a motoring question, I don't really get cross. I pretend to be a bit cross because you like it when I do that, or I possibly pretend that I don't like repetition when, to be honest, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast, let alone what we did on the programme last year or 5 years ago. But anyway, I can't remember what we did on the programme at 10 o'clock most days by the time we get to 12 o'clock. But anyway, that's how Mystery Hour works. There's a game. In fact, there are two games. There's a board game and there's a travel game. And they can be yours for money if you go to mysteryhour.co.uk, or for free if you submit my favourite submission. I was trying to think of another word there because I'd already said submit. Contribution. If you submit my favourite contribution of the day, you can win a free one. A free Mystery Hour game, and you can pick either the board game or the tin. To find out more about that, go to lbc.co.uk to consult the terms and conditions, because this is a proper grown-up radio competition, as such is regulated by all the relevant authorities. If you don't fancy your chances or you don't win, you can buy one, and you can find out more about how to do that at mysteryhour.co.uk. I think that's probably it. 10 minutes after 12 is the time. Mystery Hour is upon us. If you're unclear about what is about to happen, just stay tuned for a while and then decide whether or not you want to join in. But remember that there's no show without questions, and there's no answers without answers. That doesn't work. There's no Mystery Hour without your questions, and there's no point in asking the questions if you don't also provide the answers. I can do the banter in between, but the real magic lies, of course, in the quest for knowledge, upon which we now embark together. Jamie's in Kettering. Jamie, question or answer?
Question, please, James. And good afternoon.
Thank
and you'll be pleased to hear it's not a motoring question. And don't forget, missed information tomorrow.
I won't. Thank you very much.
Other than that,
carry on.
So basically, I'm approaching 50, very close to 50, and I've never worn glasses in my life, but recently I've started wearing reading glasses, and I've noticed that if I push my glasses to the top of my head, like as you do, I sometimes, after a few minutes, I'm not sure whether they're still on my head, and I go to tap, and sometimes they're there, and sometimes they're not. So what causes the feeling, I'm pretty sure this is common, what causes that feeling of maybe they're still on your head, like a nerve thing on the top of your head? So it's almost like you almost feel like they're still there, and when you tap, they're not there. But sometimes they are there. Does that make sense?
No.
Maybe it's just me. I mean, no, honestly, I'm pretty sure this is quite common. I think there's almost like a ghost limb.
So I've actually got some glasses with me. So you mean when you push them up onto your forehead?
Yeah. You put them above your forehead, so maybe on top of your head, you're doing
like
something,
a cool
and you're
person.
Suddenly like...
No, I'm not cool. I don't
exactly
do that. My head's too big, I think, because it will fall off, you see. I've got an enormous head, both physically and metaphorically. Absolutely gargantuan, my noggin. Right. So you've got them on your head.
I'm pretty sure it's common.
And you say to yourself, my glasses on my head. I know, I'll just listen to my feelings.
I'll tap. Yes, exactly.
And you think, they're on my head. And then you think, I'll just double check. And you tap your head, and lo and behold, your glasses aren't there. But your feelings told you that they were.
Exactly. So
and you think that's a mystery. That's a mystery suitable for Mystery Hour, like ghost glasses.
Yes.
I'm not. I mean,
Ghost limbs, ghost glasses. Why not? I mean, it's I don't know. Do you not think so? I don't.
I'm not going to take the mickey because I'm already getting loads of messages saying that. Yeah, I get this as well. Ben said it. Yeah. Jason said it. I have the same thing with Christmas paper hats. Says Callum. There you go. There's a left field contribution.
Anything that's been on your head, I feel like you can kind of feel it still there, or if it's been there. And I don't know.
We have to ask King Charles about his crown. Do you think he wanders around sometimes thinking he's got his crown on, and then he walks past the mirror and he goes, "Oh bloody hell! I forgot to put my crown on."
Yes.
We shall. We will probably, Jamie. We'll probably never know the answer to that. But let's try and get an answer to your question.
I watched The Odyssey last night as well because I know you said about how amazing that is. An amazing film.
Did you love
incredible,
it? Did you love it? Yeah,
incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Just steer clear of all the nonsense, all right? Because so everyone's got to have an opinion on The Odyssey. My opinion is it's brilliant. Go and see it. I don't care about how faithful it is to the Homeric original, or whether they should have filmed the Aeneid instead, or whether or not the women are misrepresented or the men are two-dimensional. I just it's a flipping movie. Go and see it. I go full Kidderminster sometimes. It's a movie. Go and see it. It's great. Stay safe, Jamie. Sarah's in Halifax. Sarah, question or answer?
I've got a question, James.
Carry on. Do you know what I've just done?
What?
I've just drawn a little picture of a ghost and a little picture of some glasses. That's the first time I've ever done a pictogram for a Mystery Hour question. I normally write down one or two words to remind me what the question is, but I've just done a little picture of a ghost. To be honest, if I look at that later, I won't think it's a ghost. I think it's a jellyfish. Who asked the question about do jellyfish wear glasses? What's that about? Anyway, carry on, Sarah. Sorry.
Well, I'm hoping you won't draw a picture of my question.
Highly unlikely that I would be able to.
Okay, my question is my husband and myself were on holiday last week.
Yes.
And we were sitting having a drink, and we're commenting on why is it acceptable on holiday to walk around in effectively what's bra and knickers and a see-through dress, but you wouldn't.
Right, just for the record, I've never, whether on holiday or not, walked around in my bra and knickers or a see-through dress, Sarah, so let's not generalise.
But you wouldn't do it with... Why, just because it's a bikini, make it acceptable?
I mean, you're coming at it from a sort of public decency angle.
Yes.
Whereas, in some ways, the answer's quite pragmatic. And so the original answer will be because you're near the sea. So you're wearing the things that you wear to be in the sea, and then you're keeping them on when you're no longer in the sea. And obviously that creates a context in which even if you haven't gone into the sea and you feel a desire to walk around scantily clad, you can, because the people who are in the sea are all walking around scantily clad. So I think it makes sense.
But what about the people that I've seen inland in supermarkets wearing exactly the same thing?
But they're not necessarily on holiday. Maybe they do that all the time. And also, it's been very hot lately. So acceptable's an interesting word, isn't it? Because, you know, I've been watching I was flicking through the television the other day, and I stumbled across a programme, and it was a bit one of those sort of it's not just Channel 5 actually does some really amazing stuff these days, but in my mind it's still associated with the kind of stuff it did when I was on it every day, and that was quite low rent, obviously, because I was on every day. And I stumbled across a programme, one of those kind of secret lives of, and there were some ladies in it who weren't wearing much at all, and they weren't doing anything. They weren't near the seaside. They weren't on holiday. They I think one of them was planning a wedding. So I mean, if it's not because it's hot and because you might be going for a swim, then I don't know what it is.
Well, I need the answer.
But that is the answer. It's because it's hot and they might be going for a swim, or they're in an area where everybody else is thinking of going for a swim, therefore I mean, the supermarket question's not acceptable, in my view. You shouldn't be going around the supermarket in a bikini. No, in fact, there are often signs up for men saying you have to wear a shirt in here. So I think the answer's just the weather and the seaside. It's what you wear to get a suntan, isn't it? Even if you're not... There you go. Boom. It's what you wear to get a suntan.
Not if you've got a see-through dress over the top of it.
Well, now you take that off in a minute to get a suntan. You're just wearing it to, be a little bit more acceptable on your journey from the bit where you're getting a suntan to the bit where you're getting a drink. You wouldn't you wouldn't put on a heavy dress. You wouldn't put on an anorak or a cagoule, would you?
But why then?
Because it's hot.
Why people just not go swimming in bra and knickers then?
Well, they would, but it would, it would chafe later. because it would be damp. It would chafe. You know, I think it's pretty simple. The Victorians wouldn't do it because the Victorians were much more prudish than we are. But as we've become less prudish, it's become more acceptable to keep your swimmers on when you're no longer swimming, and of course to suntan. We now like to suntan, so you wear as little as possible to get an all-over tan. I'm going to give myself a round of applause now. Thank you very much. But, thought it got lost there. Thought it got lost on the way to the show. 12:17 is the time. You can embellish that answer if you want, but it is obviously linked to what you're doing at the seaside, which is either swimming or suntanning, and therefore the kind of mood, the sartorial context is one of little clothing. So you're going to stand out more if you're wandering around in a three-piece suit, aren't you, than you are if you're wandering around in your Speedos. Never wander around in your Speedos.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 12:19. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Explain, if you would, the phenomenon of ghost glasses, or indeed ghost Christmas hats. You've had something on your head. It's no longer on your head, but if you stopped to work out without checking whether or not it was on your head, you'd conclude that it was still on your head. I don't know if that's a very good question or not, but Jamie seemed like a lovely bloke, so it's on the board. Sarah also seemed lovely, but I think we've put her question to bed. Why do we dress in so few clothings when we're on our holiday? Answer is that we're either going to go for a swim or trying to get a suntan. And the see-through dress, not really a red herring. It's just a very light and diaphanous gown that you slip on because you want to be able to slip it off again very easily and not get too hot in the process. Alistair is in Stornoway, lovely part of the world. Alistair, question or answer?
Hello, sir. Question.
Hello, carry on.
Why are craters round?
You mean on, like, the surface of planets?
Yeah, the moon, the Earth, the wherever.
Well, I mean, if you throw something...
Trajectory.
...at something... I'm not gonna lie to you, Alistair. I'm not on my strongest. I'm not at my best on these sort of questions, but I like to think I get there in the end. So what you have here is a question about cause and effect. You might want to pull up a chair. So,
I'm sat down.
So, good. So what are craters caused by?
Well, a meteor.
And what shape are meteors? And what shape are meteors?
Every shape under the sun.
No, they're all round.
No,
yes,
no, they're not.
They are.
No, some are cigar-shaped, positively. Okay, all right.
Yeah, cigar works. If cigar shape hits the ground, it's going to create a circular impact. And the reason why they're all round...
No.
Yes, the reason why they're all round is because what would happen if you put some bricks in a washing machine? What shape would they be when they came out?
Round, but
correct. Yes. No. That's it. Round. Thank you. So
space isn't a washing machine.
Space is a washing machine for the purposes of this illustration. So all the bricks in the space have become round by dint of friction and collisions.
What friction is Halley's Comet get under while it's travelling round its orbit?
That is not relevant. So anyway, all the round things floating around space, one of them hits a planet, bish, bash, bosh, you've got yourself a crater. What shape is the crater?
Right.
Same shape as the thing. What hits it? Ergo round. Ergo round. Or hang on a minute, circar, as the Latins would say, as the Romans would say. Oh, you mean the trajectory is perpendicular?
Yeah, if the trajectory of if a ball...
Well, they're probably not all like round. They're not going to be like perfect circles, are they?
But hear me out on this one. If a round ball drops 90 degrees vertical to the surface, it would create a round hole.
Boom.
But comets travel at every degree possible. It's impossible to come into this planet on a 90-degree axis because it would heat up and burn away.
Yeah, but they're spinning.
Right, okay. If I throw a round ball into sand at an angle...
Yeah.
It would have a trajectory and sand would go in the direction of the ball, away from it.
Yeah, but the bottom of the indentation would be circular.
Yeah, but there'd be a build-up of...
Well, how do you know there isn't?
How do
you know all the craters don't have little tails? You just don't notice them.
Yeah, but every crater you see has a round circumference. It's round.
Yeah, but it might have a tail, like a tadpole. What shape is a tadpole's head?
But they don't. The ones we
Answer
see
the question.
are round. If you look
what
at
shape
the
is
moon,
a tadpole's head?
What shape is a tadpole's head?
Round.
Did you expect to say that today?
And it's got a tail. It's got a tail, so it's got a round thing and a little tail on it, like a crater.
Are you basing your proof on a tadpole?
It's the tadpole theory of craters. I can't believe you've never heard of it. I thought you were an expert.
Okay, we'll go with that then. But could you put it out to the punters, please?
Of course I will. Centrifugal force? I don't know. I'm just saying words now.
I will come down and shake your hand if it is the tadpole theory, right? I'll buy you dinner.
Why are craters round? 03. Thank you, Alistair. Stay safe. 0345 6060973 is the number you need. You're sending me words now. He's gone. So I'm not just going to say them again. Hypervelocity explosion. It's the name of my first book. No, it's not. Maya is in Brentwood. Maya, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on.
Hello?
Yeah, in your own time.
Oh, right. So what I wanted to know, I don't know why I want to know this, but what I wanted to know is why do people up north have names like Ramsbottom, Grimshaw, and Shuttleworth?
Shuttleworth.
But we don't have those names down south.
Well,
why?
I mean, some people have moved, so I don't want my inbox to fill up with people called Ramsbottom or Shuttleworth who live in Surrey.
I don't want to offend anybody.
But they are northern names. So you're saying why do northerners have northern names?
Yes.
Yes. I mean,
I did look into it once upon a time because I've been wondering it for many years, and I think once I read that there might be something tenuous with Vikings who might have been called Rowbottom or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then their names kind of morph. So that might be an answer, but I'm not convinced. No one's ever conclusively.
Well, can we put some other names on the list? So we've got Ramsbottom. What was the other? Grimshaw. Did you say Grimshaw? Grimshaw.
Yeah, and Shuttleworth.
We've had Grimshaws in Coronation Street, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, Coronation Street was an inspiration for this question.
Duckworth. You wouldn't.
Yeah.
You get many Duckworths. You've got the Duckworth-Lewis theory of assessing cricket scores if the game is called off early. So maybe that's not a good example. Tilsley, Ogden. Then Ogden,
I think Grimshaw's a good one.
Grimshaw's perfect. You're very unlikely to meet anyone called Grimshaw who doesn't sound like they could appear in a Wallace and Gromit film.
Yes.
Grimshaw. Mr. Grimshaw.
And I love the names and I embrace them.
I love them as well. They make me proud to be English.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So, I mean, some of them will be villages. There'll be little villages that have... But then why is everyone... northern names. All right, you're on. Well, what's the question again? Why? Why do they have names like Grimsbottom and Shuttleworth when southerners do not?
Yeah, why do they only have them up north?
Well, it's going to be geographical then, isn't it? So you're right. It's either going to be because of human heritage, so Vikings.
Yeah, but let's talk about it.
And we are. Or Clutterbuck, Sidebottom, Burnham.
Yes.
Burnham. No, Burnham. There's a Burnham in Somerset, isn't there? There's a Burnham on Sea.
Yeah, in Essex, there's a Burnham on Crouch or something, I think.
Birtwistle.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Arbuckle.
a nice one.
Arbuckle. That was an American. Goes of an American film star called Fatty Arbuckle. Yeah, okay, you're on. I think everyone knows what we mean by a northern name. Why do they only really appear in the north? I like this question, although I won't be astonished if we don't get an answer. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. It's 12:27. Miranda is in Sheffield. Miranda, question or answer?
A question, please, James.
Carry on.
It's about sunglasses.
Oh, yeah. Honestly,
polarising sunglasses.
I can't do a pictogram for your question because I've already used up spectacles for one pictogram.
Gutted.
So, yeah, sorry about that. I'll just have to write sunglasses. Go on.
Apology accepted. So polarising sunglasses specifically. So I've recently started wearing polarising sunglasses while I'm driving.
Right.
And I noticed that when I'm wearing them, both my rear windscreen and some other people's rear windscreens have a kind of grid pattern on them. It looks like lots of rows of white squares.
Really?
So it's as if the grid was in negative space and the squares are all sort of in white. And it's not every windscreen, it's only some of them. So I know I can only have one question, so you can pick for me. So either it's why am I seeing a grid pattern with the polarising sunglasses on, or why am I only seeing it on some windscreens?
Why? Remind me what polarising sunglasses are. Ironically, as a polarising radio presenter, I need a reminder.
I thought you might ask me that, and this, I fear, may be the crux of my question. I don't really know what polarising means.
In the context of sunglasses, you do in the context of radio presenters.
Yeah, I think the answer might lie in what polarising is, or what the lenses do.
Yeah, all right. So you see grids on the back of car windows, on the rear windows of cars, rear windscreens of cars, and it's not going to be linked to the. It's not going to be linked to the heater. You know, the little. Do they still have those on cars? I don't think they do. My dad's old car. I always remember the little mini radiator to demisters, were they?
Yeah, I have that on my car.
You do?
But my car's 2005.
It's not linked to that. It's your heated rear window. The heating element on your rear window.
I mean, it could be, but it's like a grid. It's not just lines. It's vertical lines as well as horizontal. So
okay, well, that might be something to do with the lenses. So I bet the root of it is the heating, and the polarising lenses might explain the vertical lines. So anyway, I don't know what I'm doing. Is this a motoring question?
Sorry?
Are we sure this isn't a motoring question?
No, it's a sunglasses question.
Yeah, you're right. My bad. Thank you. That's a relief. It's 12:30. Amelia Cox is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
32 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where, Mystery Hour continues. Bunch of questions on the board. We'll get a few more up, then we'll start doing the answers. If you are in need of a reminder, we want to know why all craters are round. It's going to be the same. It's probably not got anything to do with tadpoles, but there is a helpful aquatic illustration. It's going to be the same reason why if you throw a square brick into a pond, you're not going to get square ripples, are you? The ripples coming. That's going to be. I reckon that is the reason why craters are round. The same reason why when you throw a brick from whatever angle, you throw a brick into a pond, the ripples are going to be circular. But I need someone who's cleverer than me to explain it better than I've managed to. I think Maya's answered her own question, but I'd love an expert to get on. It'll be Mark, won't it, up in Cumbria, I think, who's probably got the answer to this one. It will be to do with the names that were settled. So Vikings, probably, in many cases, settling the north much more than they settled the south. Ireland is extraordinary for Viking heritage. I had no idea, and I'm Irish. I went on a brilliant tour in Ireland. They've still got those buses that can turn into boats. We used to have them in London, but I think there was a terrible accident, so they got rid of them. But they've still got them in Dublin. I think they're called duck boats. And there's a Viking duck boat tour in Dublin that I highly recommend. But I had no idea how much of Irish heritage is and nomenclature is Viking in origin. It was absolutely fascinating. But, of course, they didn't come that far south, because they generally stuck quite nearby where they'd landed in their boats, longboats. So that, I reckon, is going to be part of it, why you have some names northern, and you're much more likely to meet someone whose name is descended from 1,000 years ago in the area where their ancestors lived. I think. I don't know. Craters. Why do polarising sunglasses make the rear windows of cars look like grids? And that's it, really. Or the summer clothes. I get a couple of people suggesting I may have been a little bit previous with Sarah, and that she was actually asking, why are you all right to wander around in a bikini but not in your bra and knickers? I disagree. I don't think that's what she was asking. I think she was just asking about the amount of flesh that's on display. But feel free to Steward's inquiry that question as well, or that answer as well, to your heart's content. Right, Tony is in, good Lord, I've never heard of this place before, and I grew up in the neighbouring county. Edwin Ralph is a place?
Edwin Ralph is a place, yes.
Edwin with a D?
Yes.
Edwin Ralph. Was it a person originally?
It sounds like an old blues singer, doesn't it?
Edwin,
but no, I think it was two vicars or two religious types.
Crikey, where is it near? Bridge North? Oh, no, that's Shropshire. Where's it near? Hay on Wye?
It's about 15 miles from Bridgnorth.
Oh, is it? So it is quite near Bridgnorth.
Yeah.
OK, carry on.
I've got a question for you.
Good man.
One for the sniff test.
Yeah.
Why is it when you walk past a gents' toilet, it really smells pretty bad?
Yeah.
You walk past the ladies' toilet and it's okay?
Well, I think it's obvious, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, probably.
Well, because ladies don't miss.
No. Yeah, it's probably something to do with the ladies' glow, isn't it? Horses sweat.
No, it's not that. It's they don't miss the toilet when they're weeing, and we do. So, you know, I mean, unless you're cleaning it every day and several times a day, and of course many establishments don't do that. Some do. The reason why men's toilets smell and ladies' toilets don't is because there's a lot of wee sloshing around on the floor.
Yeah. Well, speak for yourself.
Well, I'm not. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for men in general, and all men and all women. So that's the answer.
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Cheers, Tony. I'll take a round.
Okay, James. Yeah, take care.
Top man, you
Ta-da.
too. Great stuff. Sorps, round of applause, please. John's in Forest Hill. John, question or answer?
I have a question, James.
Carry on.
Why do we use Latin for Anno Domini and English for before Christ?
Why wouldn't we?
Well, why don't we just use Latin for both or English for both?
I think I know this.
Go on.
Well, we don't. For a start, they don't say Anno Domini anymore. They say BCE, don't they? Before the Common Era and the Common Era, because it's a Christian-centric way of... But that's not the answer. That's not the point. And the urinals smell as well, don't they? Sorry, I'm jumping back to the last... Urinals smell. I don't know. Anyway, it's all to do with wee-wee. That's the answer to the last question. So here's the thing, right? Anno Domini was the term used to name the year. It literally was, while you were in that year for a long time. So when the country was largely illiterate, the language of religion was Latin. So it would be the year of our Lord, 1633. That was what they would say. They called it that. They didn't really need to call the bits before it started anything. It was probably only in about the 19th century that they started displaying interest in what had happened before Christ, as it were, or before the Common Era started. So by then we were speaking English. We weren't conducting ourselves in Latin all the time. Official documents and religious tracts would all be in Latin. But by the 19th century, they weren't. You know, that's why the novel became popularised and publications would appear on late 18th, early 19th century. So English was if you like, the lingua franca by then. So they reached a point in history studies where they wanted to have a nice phrase to describe prehistory or you know, history starting from before the Common Era or the years of Anno Domini, but because English was by then our preferred language, they just named it in English. So it was known as BC, before Christ, as opposed to AC, which would be the Latin, which would be Ante Christus.
Special qualification?
Yeah, I'm a qualification, classical education.
Right, okay, sounds good to me.
It's pretty good, right?
Excellent.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm knocking it out of the park today. I haven't done this for a while. I should probably wind my neck in now. Another round of applause, please, Jack. Thank you very much. Don't panic. Keith's on holiday. Joe's in Sidcup. Joe, question or answer?
I've got a question.
Carry on, Joe.
I'm a primary school teacher and often find myself in front of 30 little people reading a story. And when it gets to the character and they're sleeping, it is always indicated by the letter Z or repeated Zs.
Yeah.
And it really annoys me.
Why?
Because who do you know goes to sleep and sounds like Z? Like, that's more like
personal.
a B.
It's a bit personal.
I asked who you knew, not if you did.
Yeah, I know, but it would be a bit personal as well, wouldn't it? Imagine if Mrs. O'Brien did that. And I told you now, it'd be embarrassing on every count, wouldn't it? I mean, for the record, she doesn't. But it does sound like that. It does sound like that.
It does not. If I went through the alphabet in my head and I thought, that is not.
But now do the exhale now. Do the exhale now. So you go like this.
I would say no. That's an ER. No, you're making it up now. You're trying to make it fit.
That's what the noise is. That's where it comes from.
No, I'm going more. Ooh.
What?
Or
You just need to see a doctor. What? How would you spell snoring?
I would go because it's quite nice.
That's Bisto. That's gravy adverts. You can't be doing Bisto. Of course, it's zzz.
I might go a bit like letter L's, like ooh.
No, that sounds weird. It's zzz. It's obviously zzz. This isn't a mystery, Joe. This isn't a mystery. It's not a mystery.
The Z is definitely assigned to buzzing bees, and they've stolen that for sleeping.
No, it's not at all. I mean, you can do both.
I'm irate.
Well, yeah, but it is.
No, it really isn't. Honestly, go around listening to people sleeping. They do not sound like this.
They do. They're more like that than any other letter, as you've just accidentally proved.
No.
So
I've
even you're letting the perfect be the enemy of the good here. So you're not going to go and you're not going to go and you're not going to go or 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 f or g. So the only letter you could use to convey sleeping is z.
See, the only thing I actually came up with about this in my 2 a.m. time was that perhaps
Bisto is R. Bisto is R. Bisto, not Bisto. R. Bisto. So you can't have R either or Go on. What did you come up with?
Well, I was just thinking, is it like, if you're counting sheep, but instead of counting sheep, you'd say the alphabet, and by the time you get to the Z, you're just like over it all.
I like that. It's good theory. It's wrong, but it's a good. I like it. I like it. It's not.
Because it's not a sound thing.
It is a sound thing.
It absolutely is not.
It is. You know when you read the terms and conditions on something and it says something like the management's decision is final. You know that, right?
Yeah.
That's where you are now. That's where you are now, Joe.
Well, you give me you record somebody sleeping that sounds like a zzz.
I will, actually. I'll do it now. Eleanor, could you find me a clip of someone sleeping and the sound sounds like a zzz, please? Me and Joe will wait. How long do you think you're going to need? I'm going to find it for you, and then that'll be it. That'll be game over. This won't take months. Can we get that? Do you think before the break?
You're going to make this fit.
We come back after the break with that, or can we find it before the break? Well, you snorted then. How would you spell that?
God knows.
See? It's not that easy, is it? Writing children's books and coming up with noises. So Z is the best that's available.
They're bees. They're bees.
Okay, think of another letter. Okay, you need to put 6 letters in a row, right?
Yeah.
Paul's, who's just pointed this out? Callum.
6 letters, yeah.
6 letters in a row. There's only really it would be an S or a Z, and an S is a snake.
I would go,
No, but that doesn't sound like sleeping, does it?
No, but that sounds like the sound you make just before you go to sleep because you're
that's
so
not
happy.
What they're trying to convey, is it? And also, some people go to sleep miserable. Have we found anything yet? Shall we come back after the break with an example? I'm going to come back after the break and then I'm going to give myself a round of applause, all right? Thank you, Joe. It is coming up to 12:45. It has to be zzz. Is there any other reason why it's zzz? I enjoyed that. A lovely laugh. Rebecca is in Manchester. Rebecca, question or answer?
Answer, please.
Carry on.
So the crater, it's actually a brilliant question of why craters are round, and it stumped scientists for years. When they
really?
Yeah, it is a
flipping
brilliant
it. Do I owe Alistair an apology then, do you think? I do? Oh, great. Carry on.
So when scientists look at the moon, it's full of craters. They're all pretty perfectly circular, and so they were convinced that meant that they were volcanoes.
Oh.
And when they threw anything at the sand, as your caller said, they become oval, but never really circular.
Sure.
But what happens with an impact crater is the velocity is so extreme and the energies are so high that it explodes on impact, and it's the explosion that creates the crater that's perfectly circular.
I think I said that. I think I said explosive velocity.
You did.
And is that
you
the
also
answer?
said ripples.
I didn't know what it meant when I said it. I can't lie to you, Rebecca, but someone sent it in and I just repeated it in the hope of accidentally happening on the right question. So it's because it's travelling so fast that it explodes on impact, and the explosion creates the creator.
Yes, it vaporizes the ground and explodes, yeah.
That's sensational. Qualifications?
So my mum, both my parents are geophysicists, but my mum was the first person to measure the impact crater that killed the dinosaurs.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you can look her up.
How did she measure it?
With waves.
Where is it?
In Chicxulub in Mexico.
And she was the first person to do that?
So they knew it was there. They didn't know how big it was. They had lots of different theories of how big it was, and she was the first person to accurately measure it.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Now we've got because, I mean, your mum is still with us, isn't she? She's
Yeah.
This is Professor Joanna Morgan, of course, as everybody listening to this knows, because we are all on this programme very familiar with not just the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, but also, of course, with the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, which is very much your mother's field of expertise. But if it was your mum that had rung in, she'd get a Ray Liotta.
I know.
But I don't know what the rules are, and I know I invented them all, so I probably should. But what are the rules when it involves the daughter of a Ray Liotta? We kind of want to continue the Viking theme, because this will sound quite Icelandic. We want a Ray Liotta-dottir, don't we? Oh, come on, you've got to get a Ray Liotta for that. Her mum measured the flipping crater. When you tell your mum that you got a Ray Liotta on Mystery Hour for revealing that she was the first person to measure the is it Chicxulub?
Chicxulub is how you pronounce it.
Chicxulub crater. Will she look at you in a state of complete confusion?
Embarrassment.
Well, there we go. So it's earned you this via your mum.
I'm Ray Liotta, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. If
Thank
you will, they will come.
There it is. And a round of applause.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. What an amazing moment as well. Thank you. 12:47 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10 to 1. We're going to run out of Mystery Hour before we've run out of hour, I think, because we've answered almost everything. Questions that still... Did we find a clip? Should we have a little listen to this clip? Not. Does that sound Zeddy to you? I don't know. You might be undoing my theory here. I don't. Can we keep looking? I want one like this. Zzz. 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 How many people are nodding off now? I shouldn't do this while you're driving, should I? I bet that you've got to be able to find. I think it's the exhale. Zzz. Anyway, Jane's in Whitehaven. Jane, question or answer?
Hi, it's a question, please.
Carry on.
I want to know why, when footballers score a goal or they're celebrating, and they whiz across the grass on their knees, why do they do that? Because if I did that, or most people did that, you'd have very, very sore knees.
Well, you wouldn't if it was wet.
Are you sure?
Yeah, positive.
Well, but they do it when it's dry as well, don't they?
I don't think they do. They're not going to do it if it hurts. They'll know from the state of the pitch whether or not it's a good moment to do that or not. If they don't do that, they might, for example, kick the corner flag or something, or jump on a teammate. So they're only going to do that when they know that the meteorological conditions are correct.
Well, I'm not totally convinced, because they always... I mean, I don't watch football particularly often. But
right.
When you
and
see
this was your biggest
news,
takeaway from the football that you have watched, is why are they doing that? That must chafe.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of chafing on today's
that.
Mystery Hour. That's two lots of chafing with it. So it would chafe a lot if you did it on dry grass, but they are doing it. I mean, A, they're going to know whether or not it's slippy enough to do it, and B, the pitches are quite often watered, both before the match and at half-time as well. Most pitches have got like sprinklers in them that rise up out of the ground, even at Kiddie, and we're not a very rich club.
So do you think when they score the goal and they're absolutely elated because they've scored the goal, they go through the mental process of... No, that bit I can answer. Yes.
So you imagine you are running as fast as you can.
Yes.
And now you need to stop.
Yes.
If you stop in normal circumstances, it kind of loses momentum. It ceases to be a very exciting thing to do. You just sort of have to put the brakes on and slow yourself down. If you're running at full speed and you hurl yourself to the floor and carry on sliding along, it's more celebratory, isn't it? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why they do it. That's why they go down on their knees, because the alternative would just be to... So you're running as fast as you can. You've just scored a goal. Yay! Yes, come on! Come on! And then you just sort of slow down until you stop and the cameras are flat. And it just looks a bit weird. Whereas you skid along the ground and you come to a halt at the end of the skid, it's as if the celebration has never been interrupted until it's over. It's great. I really like that answer. I'm going to tell you a secret, Jane. Eleanor, the producer of this programme, is pulling that face that she pulls when she thinks I'm talking gibberish.
Well, I'm not convinced.
Oh, no, she's not. She must have been pulling it for another reason.
All right.
It's because you know what the real reason is? It turns out she really hates the sound of snoring, and I'm making a search for a clip of snoring that sounds like... Honestly, surprised she's not complained to the National Union of Journalists, charges that I lay upon her today. So, no, that's the answer. The reason they do it is so that they kind of... The momentum, they can stop without appearing to break their momentum. And the reason why it doesn't hurt the knees is not to be boring, is because it doesn't hurt the knees. It's slippy enough for them to know that they're going to be fine doing that. There'll be a footballer listening to this who remembers the time he got a bit carried away and tried to do it on a pitch that wasn't moist enough, and that did hurt.
Right.
But that is obviously not the common experience.
No. Right. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take that one as well, I think. Jane, thank you very much. I haven't done this. No, you take care. I haven't done that. You haven't got... I love Whitehaven, a lovely part. You haven't got one of those northern names, have you, by any chance?
No.
No, just checking, because that's one of the questions that hasn't got an answer. Why do names like Grimshaw and Ramsbottom appear... I mean, they're quite Lancashire names for me, not even Yorkshire, but I could be wrong. 12:55, that one still needs an answer. We've done the knees, we've done the Zs, we've done the toilets, we've done the polar... We haven't done the sunglasses. Why do polarising sunglasses turn car rear windows into grids? We haven't done the names. I love that question. We've done the craters, we've done the summer clothes, and we haven't done the ghost glasses. Guy's in Bury St Edmunds. Guy, question or answer?
It's a answer, and it's to the toilet question.
Oh, be gentle.
I will be gentle. It's down to a thing, and it might be more relevant at this time with all our droughts and whatever.
Yeah.
There's a thing called a systemizer, and it's what really smells in the gents' toilets is the urinals.
Yeah, correct.
And if they don't, they're on a timer, and most of these establishments have got on a water meter, and it's quite expensive. Some of them work on a monitor that flashes on and off, but a lot of the times they've been turned down. So, especially when, like a pub, for instance, when it gets busy and you've got lots of traffic going in and out, it doesn't flush enough, and then all the stuff in the traps starts to smell. And also, overnight, a lot of pubs and places like that, they switch off the systemizer to save water. So overnight, you've got all the horrible stuff sort of brewing up in the thing, and that's what causes the smell.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, fair. I mean, there it is. So, and whereas in the ladies, it gets flushed every time it's used.
Absolutely.
There it is.
And in airports, you'll notice that they automatically flush every time you go to the.
It's because you don't want smelly toilets in airports.
No, and they've got a monitor that does that automatically.
And the pubs usually, in the olden days, the pub toilets were round the back anyway, so, you know. Yeah. And also, you got those old, you don't really see them much anymore, but there's one at one of my locals, the old ones, where it's like a trough on the floor. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the old, so they might be, I see the ceramic, or they might be metal even. They might be metal sometimes.
Well, the same thing will happen because they're not flushing enough, and there's one trap there. That's even worse, actually, because they've normally got one trap at the end.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a long time for that to, especially in weather like this.
Yeah, it's going to stink, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure I'm confident that's the answer.
I'm confident it is too. What are your qualifications?
I am a bathroom fitter, and that encompasses fitting toilets and stuff in pubs. So
Does it? How often do you fit a urinal in a domestic bathroom?
Very rarely. Only when I've been asked if some, we call them wealthy people, with swimming pools, they'll sometimes have a changing room and they'll have one.
You'd stick a urinal in your changing room. I think that Adrian Chiles has got a urinal in his bathroom at home.
He does drink quite a lot as well, doesn't he?
Not so much anymore. He's talked about that quite. I mean, he enjoys a pint, of course he does, but he's written very powerfully about his relationship with alcohol. But I think he's also written about having a urinal in his toilet at home in Chiswick.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also, one thing on the urinal, I fitted some in a nursery school, and it was really weird to get my head around it because there was one for the teacher which was set at about 30 inches, and I had to put this one in really low, and I was saying it's too low, and I didn't really... These are like 4 or 5 year old kids.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're practically on the floor, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So. I like that. God, dear. Well, what a job, eh? Love it.
Yeah, well,
thank you. I mean, you've got yourself... I mean, you're not quite in Ray Liotta territory, I don't think, Guy, but I'm going to give you a round of applause for that. Lovely work. 12:58 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien. I can squeeze in one more, I think. Roger's in. Can I? I can't really. So I need to pick a winner. Who's going to be the winner today? I have to try to give it to a man because I keep giving the prizes to a woman because I'm so naturally chivalrous. The problem is my favourites are women. Jamie and the ghost glasses. Yeah, should we give it to Jamie and the? Yeah, give it to Jamie because he didn't get an answer. There we go. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can also stay up to date with all the latest news, videos, and opinions. You can listen to a range of podcasts, including James O'Brien Daily, the best bits from my LBC show every day. So download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Tom Swarbrick, but now it's time for Sheila Phone.
James O'Brien on LBC.